get the vehicle into the right gear.
Do not crash into any trees. Oh, no,
Just jump into the car and hope for the best, and you'll see where it takes you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm surprised they're moving as fast as that didn't go well.
Who is the best driver? Well, me of course, although some of the cam ops might disagree.
I'm Nikki here at Ambion Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
Goodness, look at its wobbly legs. Oh, I don't believe it. I can't believe we've actually seen it. Oh my goodness. Oh, careful, careful, careful. Oh no. Oh, it's okay, little one. Okay.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for Wild Earth. I have been living for the past decades here in the Sabi Sands, and that has allowed me an intimate connection with this place and a better understanding of how it works. For me, the questions that make me think and lead to answers that all of us learn from is what really drives me. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the sunshine and blue skies here on Tswalu Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, where we can actually see the sky. We're very excited about that. It's been a few days. It's been a few days of being very wet underfoot and a little bit uncomfortable at times, but we are back out in the sunshine. Hello, everybody. We are very excited to have you with us. And this afternoon, we're going to head on down to Chitwa because our technical wizards have worked some magic, and it seems like we might have all of our antennas and masks and things working on Djuma. Definitely the other mast on Djuma that was not working is fixed. We just need to go and ascertain whether Chitwa's mast is fixed, and then we'll be able to try and find Thandi and her cub. But I'm not alone, as always. We've also got Deirdre out in Tswalu Kalahari, as well as Mike. He might be joining us out in Pradens, Dan at Anbion Ingala, and Deerwald is with us at Anbion Punda. And once again, we welcome you on board your live African safari. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Tswalu Private Game Reserve, where Sebastian Gombi has caught up with what looks like a flycatcher. It looks like a dusky flycatcher to me. It's quite interesting because I was asking him to frame up what I was almost certain was a spotted flycatcher on the other side of the tree. And now it looks like a dusky flycatcher has emerged in this wonderful knobthorn tree. And the birds are out this afternoon. On our way back this morning, they were out and about enjoying the sunshine. Everybody is happy that the sun is here. And hello, everybody. My name is Steve, joined by Sebastian on camera. And as always, very excited to have you with us. Please jump on board. Send through your questions and comments using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, the @FC on YouTube. And if you are under the age of 18, get your parents or guardians to send through questions to kidsquestions at WildEarth. At wildearth.tv. You can also go and register on the website. Head on over to the live safari page where you could submit your questions there. It is 31 degrees Celsius, 87 degrees Fahrenheit, and I think you could cut the humidity with a knife right now. Oh, that looks like two different birds. Definitely a juvenile on the left. So what we're looking at, everybody, is probably some chicks of a flycatcher that just bred. And probably what I thought before was a spotted was probably one of the chicks, because got the very streaky chest there. Going to have to just double check. I do believe, though, it is going to be a dusky flycatcher, because the spotteds, as far as I'm aware, don't breed here. How wonderful. Flycatchers are sometimes quite tricky to identify. At this time of year, there's a couple that you can confuse with each other. Dusky obviously doesn't go anywhere. It spends the entire year here. It's got very slightly diffused streaking on the chest, which you can kind of see, whereas the spotted has got quite a lot of streaking. And this time of year, you will find both. Yes, I'm having a look at a picture of the juvenile, and that juvenile that we saw there is exactly like the one we're seeing. Very, very cool. Now, it would be so interesting to see a little red-chested cuckoo amongst them, because they are the host species as well as a class as cuckoo. So imagine seeing those cuckoo species hanging out with one of these birds. They're all preening. They've all been very wet for a few days, and they've probably been doing some dust bathing and some preening. Time to clean and to refresh and sing. So quite often when you see a baby bird, it can look bigger than the adult. And that's because the feathers are much more fluffy. Still a lot more down feather there. Haven't reached proper adult plumage yet. And so they get quite sort of bulky. As you know, if you've got a down pillow or down feather jacket, you know how puffy that can be. And obviously that's designed to keep them insulated, to keep them warm. Wonderful. Okay, well, we've started off well with some birds this afternoon. We're going to carry on down south to Chitwa, see if our signal is indeed working over there. And there was interaction with Tundi last night in the area of Chitwa. She'd made a kill, and she was collecting a cub to take the cub there, and a hyena stole it from her. So we're not sure if we will find her. At least being in the area. Oof, movement of air through the face. And this time of day. Oh, sorry about the bumps. Seb's doing the zombie at the back there. He's just sitting like this. Thanks for that, Jared. Gentlemen, Rex, just myself out so far. I haven't had any updates.
Thank you. Where are you? What's your route from the lodge?
I'm heading south on Weaver's Nest. I'm going to go check out Chitwa. This is Rexon from Juma.
Chloe.
Okay, copied. Some lovely leopard tracks in the mud. There was a leopard that walked here this morning. You'll actually be able to see the tracks that elephants have just kicked up the mud all over the place here. Not sure if we're going to see them very well. Oof, it smells quite muddy. Here we go. Can you see this one here? Now, if you're in doubt of leopard size tracks, get a knife or something of measurement proportions. This is 10 centimeters. Now, you put it next to the track, measure the back to the front. So this track's about 8 centimeters. So this is a female, but that is the back foot. That's the front foot. You can see that the front foot has been stepped on by the back foot. So let's double check. That one looks a little bit bigger. So that looks like it might be a youngish male due to the fact that the toe is quite well splayed out. And it's possible that it could actually even have been Tundi coming back onto the property with her cub. After having an interaction with the hyena, something else might have happened, and she might decide just to move all the way back. But we would see a second set of tracks here, that of another leopard, which will be helpful. The hyenas were definitely following. Some little young hyenas. I don't see a second leopard track. There's one, and it's actually not that big. Do get unsure, just measure it, and you'll get a male leopard should be 10 centimeters, a young male leopard, a little bit smaller than that, of course, and a female leopard about 8. If it's reaching in about the region of about 6, then you're probably looking at a caracal. We don't really find many caracal around here, but they are around. We're going to go check Chitwa first and see what the update is that side, and then we'll come back and see if we can figure out. We did spend some time on tracks here this morning, but apart from these very muddy areas, it's nearly impossible to see what's going on the ground, and that's because of the weather we've had before. But let's see the weather going forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Deirdre at Tswalu, and on camera with me is Morgan. We're trying to do this great reveal, but we're about 10 seconds too short. So stick with the dune for our great reveal. We don't really have too much of a plan. It is 33 degrees here, which is well over 91 Fahrenheit today. It is toasty. Morgan keeps asking me to try and find him some clouds that are in front of the sun so that we don't get too roasted. But let's see what the view reveals. Stay with us for a second. Isn't that just spectacular? So we have to... I think I did this one 2-3 days ago. I think we were a similar area and we just had heavy rain clouds with lightning and thunder and rain. Now today completely open. So definitely no threat of rain at this stage, which is very exciting for both of us. We're probably going to head down to those areas along the base of the mountain there in those flats and see what we can find. Our plan today is no plan. We're just going to bumble along and see what we can find. So don't forget to send all your questions. It really does help us as guides to engage with you, know what you want to learn about. You can ask those questions, #WildEarth, and put @FC in the front if you would like us to answer one of your questions. All I can hear is the little buzzing flies around. All the insects are really busy. So Stacey's comment is such beautiful scenery, and absolutely agree with you. We've got some spectacular landscapes in the Kalahari, and I came to show you this guy. I think he thinks I'm chasing him because he's just climbed higher and higher up there. So that's one of the armoured ground crickets. He's decided to go for high ground, and they will tend to go up into the trees and up onto the top of vegetation in the late afternoon and in the evening. It does make him a little bit vulnerable up there for potentially being seen by a predator. Oh, I was looking for one earlier, but I finally found... Oh, yeah, sorry. I think I made him fall out the thing. So, these dunes are not the easiest to walk up and over, but I was looking for one either yesterday or today. A nice eland bean, but now we've been seeing them mostly green. And this one is finally desiccated enough that it's dry. We can actually, without too much force, open it. It's already got a hole in it, so probably... Oh, that's probably somebody's house. But there's a seed in there. I'm not going to damage it further in case somebody is living in that little hole. They've decided to make that their home. Nice shelter. Sometimes they'll be burrowing in there to actually eat the seed, which doesn't help the eland bean. But... otherwise, they're just using it as part of their life cycle. Nice eland bean. Some of them can get really large, more than 30 centimeters and quite wide as well. So I'm going to put this one back so that if there is any little dweller in there, he can hatch of his own accord. So we're going to carry on down the dune, and we're going to send you across to Ngala. They'd like to say hello.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to And Beyond Ngala. Now, this afternoon, for a change, the sun is shining and the rain is gone, and I don't see any on the forecast or on the horizon. And I've come to the only cement crossing that we've got to kind of get across the river at the moment, and there's a pair, in fact, of hammerkops that are feeding and moving around. The one over here is just taking it quite easy on the bank. The other one is in front of us. It's kind of just ducked away, but... So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on into the northern part of the reserve. That other one, is it going to come and stop? It has actually come and stopped. It's standing on a rock in front of us, in fact. But good afternoon, everybody. I'm Daniel Fisher. On camera this afternoon, we got OD. So as I was saying, I'm going to cross over to the northern side of the river at this cement crossing. The river has gone down enough to allow us to do so. And I'm going to go and see what we can find. I mean, the reserve is still incredibly wet.
So I'm going to try and find some places that are a bit drier and see if we can't find anything. No signs of any tracks of lions this morning, but let's see what we can find this afternoon. So this hammerkop that we've got here, this pair, this pair will be a mating pair, a monogamous pair in fact, and they will mate for life and stay together. And they're hanging around this water's edge, particularly on this concrete crossing that we have here, because I'm sure you can even hear through the microphone that the water's flowing quite quickly and it's making a little bit of a gushing noise over the top. And the reason that they're here, they'll often stand on the edges of this water, just standing there very patiently waiting for food. So what they feed on is mostly like frogs and tadpoles, small fish and aquatic insects. So they'll stand there and wait for all sorts of things to be washed down, and they'll kind of just catch them as they're going over the little causeway. It's quite tricky to see from this position, but that head is quite a unique shape. And a hammerkop in Afrikaans is directly translated to a hammerhead, and that's directly related to the shape of its head, in fact. Another interesting thing about these two birds is they work together to build this stick platform nest, and is in fact the largest nest built by two individual birds, at least in Africa, I'm pretty sure in the world in fact. And it's huge. It can take them, I used to think a long time, but if you look in your book it'll say about some as quick as 40 to 43 days, which is mind-blowing for this huge nest. They're also well known for being hoarders. So you'll see often nests have been broken down by people after not being used for a long time, and they found all sorts of funny materials, people's underwear, clothesline pegs, and that'll be reasons to keep it insulated. You'll see they'll have this one chamber inside the room, and the female will often insulate it with mud on the inside to kind of keep it warm and strong for the chicks. And by bringing all sorts of funny debris in there as well, they can also act as a form of kind of insulation and protection on the inside. But yeah, aquatic birds, brown, I'm sure these two have got a nest not too far away from here. They're often hanging around this causeway, just looking for food and moving around. They're quite far apart. I wonder if the one on the right, this one that we're looking at the moment on the sandbank, hasn't had a productive day feeding. It doesn't seem like he or she, I'm not too sure which one is which at this moment. They're quite tricky to tell apart, in fact, the males and the females. But a really good place to start, and what a great start with these two. It's always fascinating when you drive past the hammerkop's nest. It looks like a great big mess, huge nest in the trees, and you'll often see all sorts of other birds coming and raiding these nests and taking over them. Those include owls, snakes and things will also be going in there. Jerome, have I seen any rare birds after the rains? So the answer is actually yes. I think it was it yesterday morning? We saw a dwarf bittern, and it's not terribly rare. They can often be quite tricky to see though. They are around, but to actually get a sighting of one can often be tricky because they're super shy and very secretive. But we saw one, we even managed to get it on the show yesterday, of a dwarf bittern, beautiful bird. Other than that, since the rains, before I went on leave in around November, we had quite early rains. I saw some special birds. Saw rufusback, heron. Saw some pygmy geese around here, which is quite a good one for us. We saw rufus-bellied heron, sorry, that's the word I was looking for. And what was it again? Green sandpiper was another one we saw. Sorry, I'm just racking my brain for the ones that we saw as the rains came. Great painted snipe was another one we saw in one of the pan systems. So quite rare birds. The rufus-bellied heron was particularly special. If you have a look, let me quickly grab my book and show you a kind of distribution of a rufus-bellied heron. It shouldn't really be seen around here at all. The only places that it is really seen quite commonly, or in its distribution in South Africa, is in fact at Pinda. So let me just see if I can get to the page in the book quickly. 110. Okay, here we go. So the rufus-bellied heron, this little guy over here, See there? So it's got that rufous belly and quite dark blue at the back. Also an incredibly shy bird, but more importantly, what's made it so special for the area is if you have a look over here. So this is a distribution map. It's green, which means it's a non-migrant bird. Odie, just why don't you just show the map here quickly? So this rufous-bellied heron over here is all in green, meaning it's non-migrant, and the areas that are in green are the places that it will be found quite commonly. So this bottom part, if you guys are familiar with a map of Southern Africa, is all South Africa. And the only parts in South Africa that have in fact got green is right in this northeastern part of the country. And that's where pinders actually, and you'll see them fairly frequently there from time to time. I saw my first one at Pinder when I started there about 3 years ago. And there's no other places in South Africa that you see them. So why it was so special is up here in the north where we saw it, I'm pretty sure it's never actually really been recorded at all. These hammerkops, though, on the other hand, are pretty common, frequent visitors, and we see them all year round around these river systems, even around waterholes. You hear them quite frequently as well. I mean, they are thriving at the moment with all the frogs around. You hear them as it's getting darker, lots of tadpoles. But I'm going to leave these hammerkops to do what they do. I wonder if they will go back to their nest this evening, and we'll carry on with our journey this afternoon and see what else we can find.
It's no secret that nature can heal. Some of our Wild Earth viewers are finding solace in the outdoors close to their homes during lockdown.
This is how I keep myself busy during lockdown. Beautiful little jumping spot.
I love walking in the open spaces near my home. Provides a moment of peace in a crazy world.
This is my fire escape with some of the birds I get to see. That's what it's like in New York City during lockdown.
Being in nature helps me to cope with the challenges of life and helps me to be humble and grateful.
It's magical watching everything turn into a winter wonderland as the snow softly falls.
Been doing lots of walking, dog walking, outside at parks.
This is my Ridgeback Drake. Our little slice of paradise is a provincial park called Hopewell Ross.
Connecting with nature is critical to stay positive during these tough times. Wild Earth encourages you all to find time to escape to nature.
Sometimes love wants to make you sing. And sometimes love wants to make you bow and fan your wings to your bow. For the southern yellow-billed hornbill, these are signs that love is in the air. These birds are destined for a season of monogamy at least. Breeding pairs are in it for the survival of their chicks. But before love commences, the male needs to woo his valentine with food in the form of nuptial gifts.
My name is Ross, and I'm a field guide at and beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
We've seen these ellies really chase wild dogs before. Let's get into spot. There we go, here it comes. Look at that, isn't that amazing?
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
So we're back at Tswalu, and that blue wildebeest bull, he was standing perfectly on the side of the road in a shady patch, and there was a perfect shady patch for Morgan and I to broadcast underneath, and then he snorted at us and he ran away. So he doesn't help us. But nice blue wildebeest bull, that'll be his territory. So it depends on food availability as well as water as to how big it is, and also what he's able to defend. So his closest waterhole is literally over this hill. At the base of that mountain is the closest waterhole. So he's probably not necessarily the most territorial, because the more territorial ones will actually get prime spot, which is actually quite close to the water. But when Morgan zooms back out, he's going to show you we're like in a field of wild cucumbers. You can see all these, we've been saying how big they can get. So look at that one. I mean, he's quite spiky to hold, but that one fits within my hand. And originally when they started in the season, they were relatively small. So that is almost when they're getting to the point where they're actually ripe and edible to a lot of the animals that choose to eat them. I'm going to bring this one closer. This one's already been eaten, but I'm going to bring it to put it on the vehicle just to see the hive of activity that's actually going on inside that now that one animal has already opened it up. So I think like a ground squirrel or something has got in there and eaten some of the seeds, and now you can just see all the sort of abundance of insect life and everybody else that's choosing to use that as a place to live. That's this cotton stainer that's just jumped out, that's running around there. Type of an insect. And yeah, I can't see, there's just quite a few little insects in there, but mostly cotton stainers by the looks of it. So we're going to go and put that back on the ground. Do you want to climb back in? Come, jump back in. Oh no, oh, you've had your chance. So let's put that one we don't know who was around there. Oh, now I don't even know if I can find the exact same spot. Oh, well, I'm just going to have to put him down somewhere here. The same thing will happen. They'll break that down. So, Leslie, yes, humans can eat this wild cucumber, but I warn you, it is bitter. It's known as a bitter melon, so it's not necessarily a choice, but people in these areas, surviving in these areas like the Bushmen, would definitely have made use of these as a water source as well as a food source. Sometimes actually dry them out now, maybe make them into a bit more of a powder, but I wanted to show you here, maybe I can pick this one up, how it just grows on the ground as a creeper. And it's amazing how quickly, as soon as we've had rain, this grass, it just takes over and then just sends out runners in all different directions with the leaves. And I'm going to bring one leaf to you just to show you. He's got plenty others, but it's much easier for Morgan and the camera work to get nice and close if I just put it down there and I put it still. But you can actually see how hairy those leaves are. So it's actually almost like feeling a bit like a sandpaper if I rub it. It's not soft, those hairs are not soft at all. They're very, very hairy, and sometimes it also allows them for grip if I try and sort of stick it onto my shirt. And that'll be what it will use to actually sort of hold itself down onto the soil. But you can almost see, I can do that close to my mic, and you can actually feel, or you can hear how sandpapery it is if I rub it. It's almost like kind of looks a bit like a spinach leaf, yeah. So there, FC says you can hear it quite nicely, that sort of sandpapery type of effect. It's actually, I've noticed that there's a moth right next to the vehicle on the Indigofera pollinating them, but I wanted to see if I can see any more on these beautiful pink flowers. It's just insects buzzing all over the place. That's all we can hear. It's just the insects everywhere. Here comes a nice white butterfly. Very, very fast. Oh, no, there it goes. It's gone. So we'll carry on driving down the road. Stay with us and we can see who's the wildebeest's neighbours are, because at this stage it's quite open. There's actually a section of burrows just up ahead. Maybe we'll find some ground squirrels. It's one of the old meerkat burrows just up ahead. Stephen's comment commenting that the insect population must be exploding after the rain. It is indeed exploding. There we go, there's a squirrel. Right on cue. Oh, no, right under. He's just gone into the hole. Let me just get into another spot. Maybe he sticks his head out. He's down there, Morgan. I don't know. What looks like a sort of a tuft of yellow. He's just gone in behind there, so we just have to... The ground squirrel literally ran, stopped at his burrow, stuck his head up, and then went down again. But maybe... I almost want to say if we're quiet, but that's also quite a challenge for me to be quiet for a while. So while we wait for him, I'm going to show, on this tree here, Morgan, you can actually see the territorial marking on the... Oh, the squirrel's back out. Oh, good. Can you actually see him there? Oh, yeah. Yeah, just literally. So they almost have an ear very much like a human ear. So this is the Cape ground squirrel. We just generally call them ground squirrels for short. But their ear is almost exactly the same as a human ear on the side of their head there. So he's listening to us. So it just shows you burrows that we don't go by as regularly as some of the ones that share with the meerkats. The squirrels are not as relaxed. So we'll give them time, but we've got something else that we can show you here in the meantime is on this nice big camel thorn tree. If you actually look at the colour of the bark, the stem, I'm going to get out and I'm going to show you what is going on here. So we have sort of a nice open patch of sand just below here. It hasn't been used recently, judging by the fact that there's been rain on top of the sand, but this height and this behavior is typical of a blue wildebeest bull that marks his territory. Probably our friend that we just saw there not so long ago. So they actually rub the bark to almost a red coloration, so they get right down. And this will be from sand on the horns after it's rubbed his face in the sand, and then he'll come also and rub here. He's got 2 scent glands on his face, just below his eyes. They're called pre-orbital scent glands. And he'll rub his horns up and down, but then he'll also rub his face on the branches on that stem, and he'll leave scent behind from those pre-orbital glands. So this is just a typical territorial sign of a wildebeest bull. And also, the function of having it like that is nice and high. Any other wildebeest in the area can look around and notice that there's a territorial marking. So we're going to move on. The squirrel hasn't come back out. We're going to send you across to some birds at Ngala.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, we've just kind of popped up to a watering hole. With today being incredibly hot for the first time in a long time, I was hoping to find some bigger animals maybe coming down to have a little bath or a wade around. Now, there's some interesting birds. I mean, this white one with the very distinctive movement, bill and head in the water, moving left to right, is an African spoon bull. So a bird was starting that's alarm calling. I'll go and have a look at that just now. But, I mean, a very distinct movement. White, reddish face. You see it's right in there, looking for all sorts of invertebrates, maybe some small fish. Keep going. I mean, that bull will be right on the bottom of the water, feeling, as it's going left to right, feeling, going around. There's some other interesting birds around here. As we zoom out a little bit, there's some white-faced whistling ducks. Beautiful ducks. Just on the water's edge, a few of them. I mean, 3 in total, I think it is. Yes, that's it. And then just before it goes out of picture as well, we're talking about quite special birds to see around. Just to the right of it, Odie, that tiny little wader. Let's see if we can see. Yeah, there it is. So that is quite a special little migrant wader. It looks like a wood sandpiper, and I mean, it is quite far, and some of the sandpipers can be tricky to see. But I did pick up a pair of binoculars, and on the back of it, it's got incredibly distinct, like, little spots on its back. Very white underneath, not quite as white as a green sandpiper, but slightly smaller as well. And on top of its head, it's got this very distinct white, or on top of its eye, rather, this very distinct white eye stripe. that gives it away as a wood sandpiper moving through the water. Also looking for small fish and small insects and invertebrates on the edge there. And I mean, you can see just how small it is. It's nowhere near the size of that spoon ball, so it doesn't have the luxury of being able to wade several meters into the water where it gets a bit deeper, but rather spending time right on the edge where it can still have its body above the water and not get too wet. As we've been sitting here as well, there have been a few hippos that have come to investigate, getting a little bit closer, and they are incredibly inquisitive. They were quite far away, and they've seemed to come a bit closer with our presence. And actually, now that I'm looking a little bit closer, it looks like the one in the far back, Odie. I don't know if you can zoom in on that. Let me see through the camera. A little bit left. Can we see? Oh, it is. It's a buffalo. Just a lone bull buffalo that's sitting in the water. And that is exactly, I mean, the reason that I came here, to see if we could maybe find some of these bigger herbivores that are coming down to wallow on a warm day like today. Keep themselves cool. I mean, there is lots of water around at the moment in between the blocks and not around the watering hole, so it's not necessary for this buffalo or even elephants or any other big herbivores to come down to this specific watering hole to kind of cover themselves in water and mud and bathe. There are actually some impalas that are now coming down to the watering hole. You will see, however, that a big watering hole like this has often got quite a lot cleaner water. Often those smaller mud wallows, particularly if lots of animals are using them, the mud stirs up quite a lot, and you'll see a lot of hyenas, buffalo, all these animals will actually urinate and defecate in those watering holes or those mud wallows, turning it into quite a nasty little place and not the nicest water to drink. So a bigger watering hole will have nicer or more pleasant water to drink, and if they've got the option or the choice, they will choose the nicer water. Patricia, do the hippos ever attack the buffalo when they're mud wallowing? I mean, generally no. I wouldn't be just listening to the hippos making a noise. So generally they wouldn't, no. I mean, there's no benefit to the hippos to attacking the buffalo. I mean, a hippo is quite a lot bigger, but not that much bigger than a buffalo. And a buffalo would definitely put up enough of a fight to potentially injure a hippo. And a hippo, if it's got nothing to gain, there's no point in it attacking the buffalo, and they know that. So they'll try and avoid it. However, if there's serious competition for territory in terms of the hippos and the big bulls, and maybe there's a bit of extra testosterone flowing around if there's other males around, they may in fact kind of chase that buffalo away. However, you see where that buffalo is lying, it's far shallower than where the hippos are coming to us. If the hippo is kind of advancing towards the buffalo in quite an aggressive manner, it would very likely make it obvious that it is wanting to chase the buffalo away, and the buffalo will take that warning, I'm sure. It would then get up and move away, or maybe move to a more shallow area where the hippo has got to at least gain more ground and actually stand up and move quite slowly before it gets to the buffalo. But generally, no. However, I wouldn't be surprised at certain times of the year when there is some serious competition for space and territory in the watering hole. But now, as you can see, there is so much water around. I mean, that big watering hole when we were at 2 days ago or so, I mean, normally that's full of hippos, often up to about 20 of them. And there wasn't one, and the reason for that is there is so much water around that when they get up in the evenings and move around, feeding on grass, and come back to a watering hole, they don't have to go back to the same one every time because there's this abundance of water. I mean, even a watering hole like this in the wintertime will dry up, and it'll dry up quite quickly as well. So that's the kind of time in the year when the hippos are looking for more permanent water to spend their days in. You'll see even at the moment with all the drainage lines and things that are flowing, and all these drainage lines are responsible for filling a dam up like this. And you might find some hippos spending some time in a drainage line with some soft sand, water flowing, lots of shade. That's a good enough place for a hippo to spend its day. Might even be a smaller bull that will spend its time in those kind of areas. The reason being there will be a territorial bull that will be in charge of this watering hole, particularly in the drier parts of the year when there is serious competition. The size of the bull in a watering hole like this and the competition will be very, very fierce. So the smaller ones might be forced to spend their days in maybe a drainage line or a shady area, which isn't first prize. So they've got this incredibly sensitive skin to the sun, so they'll have to try and avoid it, but they will need to get to water. They'll only be able to spend a couple of days out, even if it is in a shady area. They also feel quite vulnerable outside of water. Water is their safe place, so they would love to spend as much time as they can, and if they do feel threatened, if they're not in the water, they will either attack, which can put them at risk. I mean, a risk of injury out here, we were talking about it with the buffalo and things as well, is a big worry to all the animals, in fact. Oh, there's actually another spoonbill that's also come out of hiding. It seems it must have been hiding behind this log on the right-hand side. Foam-nest tree frog on the right-hand side. Look at that spoonbill just going. I mean, it even puts its whole head under the water, eyes and everything. Very interesting. Just moving around, going in almost like a figure of 8. Left, right. And, I mean, those little white nests on the tree are foam-nest tree frogs. Linda, what a great variety of bird species. I completely agree with you, particularly around a watering hole. I mean, at this time of the year, we're talking about all these mud wallows and small little marshes and things that develop that do bring in all kinds of special birds. But around a bigger watering hole like this, it is. I mean, there's a few Egyptian geese around as well. I can hear red-billed buffalo weavers. It sounds like they're going in and out of their nests. I did see a common scimitar fly over as well. Cape turtle doves are calling. There's a huge variety of birds around a watering hole like this. So these little white patches on this dead log are foam-nest tree frogs, or their nests rather, and you'll see they'll create these nests. The male will kind of rub his back legs together with a mucus infused with semen, and he'll create this little foam, and the female will then go and lay her eggs in there, and the eggs will be fertilized with the male semen, and obviously it's above the water. You can see the positioning, so that once the eggs hatch into these tadpoles and the tadpoles start to move around and wriggle around, they actually in fact drop out of that little nest into the water, and that'll provide all sorts of food for these birds that are moving around. And as the tadpoles turn into frogs, they'll still provide food to all sorts of different birds as well. And you'll see lots of these foam nests along the riverbeds as well, or even high up in trees, maybe even up to 2 meters or about 7 or 8 feet above the water. And then the tadpoles drop quite far, but not damaging themselves. And then you'll see those hammerkops that we were talking about earlier. They'll just be sitting at a causeway waiting for these tadpoles to either be washed down, or maybe one of the bigger frogs, in fact. I mean, these foam-nest tree frogs, I mean, they get the name tree frog, not necessarily because it's made its nest in this tree, but you'll see they spend a lot of time, even during the winter time, out of the water and in the trees, trying to conserve energy and kind of go into a state of almost hibernation. They'll change their colors as well. They've got these really creepy back legs, which, to be quite fair with you, I'm not the biggest fan of frogs. I think as a child I just never liked them, and particularly this foam-nest tree frog. And I'm afraid I don't have an amphibians book on me this afternoon, but they've got these very pointy back legs which are rather creepy and freaky. Super lovely to see this herd of impala as well coming down. It looks like it's only males. I wonder if they're not still trying to avoid the attention of all the little lambs, which is bringing the presence of predators towards all these herds of impalas. Yeah, I wonder what other things will come down here during the course of the day. I mean, it's a really good place for elephants, young bulls. It's a nice, deep watering hole, which makes it a great place for elephants to come in and have a bath, play around, particularly on a warm day, wet themselves behind the ears, keep themselves cool. And it takes a long time for elephants to, because of the size of their bodies, to actually get themselves cool. It takes them a long time to warm up as well. So once they are cool, they can spend a lot of time, even in the heat of the day, moving around, feeding, as we've discussed as well before. And yes, it looks like on the back of that hippo or that... Billy, are there any crocodiles in this watering hole? There haven't been. I remember when I first got here, there was a crocodile that hung around in here. At the moment, I haven't seen one for several years in this watering hole, to be honest. That's not to say that there isn't one. I mean, any body of water in Africa, particularly after all the rain that we've been having, there could be a crocodile at any stage. And the way that a crocodile would get you, there is obviously the chance of it moving. It can walk very easily. But maybe a small one with all the rain. We were talking about the tributaries and the drainage lines filling up a watering hole like this. If there is a big rain and maybe a dam breaks, or a crocodile that's walking gets stuck in a little drainage line and gets washed down into a watering hole like this will be a great place to end up as a crocodile until it dries up. I mean, if you get washed down here, there's lots of fish around, there's lots of animals that come down, there's lots of birds on the edges of the water, there's lots of little baby Egyptian geese particularly, that often swim across the water. So there'd be lots of food for crocodiles, and a baby crocodile that ends up here, and if this watering hole didn't dry up for several years, will turn into a big, strong crocodile in not such a long time. Very good question. I still wouldn't go for a swim here, although I'm fairly certain there are no crocodiles in here. You can never be too sure, and that's a kind of chance you don't really want to be taking. Look at that other spoon ball still going, hey, doing exactly the same. Come up, kind of have a breath, and look at the shape of the bill from there, looking at just like a spoon, thin into that thicker round part at the end. Okay, I think we've given this watering hole a fair amount of time, and we've kind of discussed most of the things that are around here. I'm probably going to send you somewhere else for now while I carry on looking for anything else interesting to let you know about this afternoon.
Do you dream of traveling to a far-flung wilderness location where life continues as normal? A place where you can escape to nature and breathe. If you become a Wild Earth explorer, then this could soon become a reality. Subscribe today and stand a chance to win regular travel prizes. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
So in 1998, we had this idea to go and put a live web camera on a waterhole somewhere in the Sabi Sands next to the Kruger National Park. And I approached just about every single landowner, and everybody thought I was completely crazy until I met Yuri and Pippa Moorman.
We thought it was definitely a fun idea and a worthwhile thing to experiment.
And it immediately became a runaway success. And it gave people all around the world the opportunity to watch a little piece of Africa day and night. Back in 1998, it was the very early stages of the internet. And all we were able to do was to get a 30-second refreshing JPEG out of that camera. But over time, what we began to do is focus more and more on trying to develop this concept of giving people the opportunity to go on safari.
Even though we live just 500 meters up this hill, we still put the camera on to see what's happening.
Absolutely, we watch it ourselves.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Is it just pretended to be dead? Oh, that was amazing. I can't. How do I? It's like that is hands down the coolest.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
So welcome back to Tswalu. We don't have a live bird in our picture. I know you've been doing quite a few birds, and I think it was Dan that was talking about how many different new birds he'd seen since the beginning of the rains. So very early on at Tswalu, and our very first rains of the season, somewhere around November, myself and a colleague saw a greater flamingo, but it was a juvenile. So that was probably our most bizarre, unexpected bird to find in the Kalahari, was a flamingo. I think he'd been blown off course on his way up to Namibia along the coast somewhere. So Morgan's showing you a nest down there, but I see one that's hasn't made it, that's fallen down onto the ground. So at least this one I've got a bit more access to explain. But we'll get the mast weavers here in Tswalu. Well, let me put my book down. I've only got so many hands. So the mast weavers, what they'll do is they'll go and strip the grasses. If there's anywhere here that there's palm fronds, but that there aren't other areas where they can get hold of palm fronds, they'll strip those. But some of the nice taller grasses actually take the leaves and they strip bits off the leaves, nice and green, and then they'll come here and somehow attach it, so generally sort of a little woven attachment there. Initially make a circle and then back and forth, just bringing more grass to start closing up that bowl shape and consistently starting to sort of weave, and they get in and out. And if at any point in time a female comes past, even if he isn't finished, he'll start hanging off the nest and shaking his wings and doing his little swizzle. I know that the Wild Earth viewers that have been with us for a long time have more than likely seen a weaver do that. And then he hopes that she chooses him or comes back when his nest is complete. If she doesn't like it, sometimes he rips it up and he starts again. But I've also seen males sabotage other males. As soon as he's done a nice little piece in his nest and he flies off to go and get another strip of grass, another male from nearby will actually come and sort of pull bits and pieces out of their nest, either to sabotage them or just sort of being spiteful. Maybe they hope that then the female will then actually come to them. But it is amazing that you get the weavers using all different sorts of material. These ones using grass, the sociable weavers also grass, but particularly sort of nice, I would say, 15 to 20 centimeter pieces to make their massive dome nest like we saw this morning. And then you also have the red-headed weavers that will actually use sticks. So I think even the buffalo weavers, they'll use sticks. I think weaving with sticks is a little bit more challenging than weaving with grass. And they do tend to either choose a thorn tree, like this one has. It's chosen a blackthorn. But what it's done is, you can notice if you look down the branch, it's actually stripped the branch of all of its leaves. So it allows it better visibility for predators approaching the nest. And that can be the only reason, or also to make the nest more noticeable to a female is a possibility I hadn't thought of before. But that the weavers do that, and some of them also tend to try and be overhanging water. If they can find a prime spot where it hangs over water, that also does better to avoid predators. So I don't know if this guy just didn't choose an ideal spot. Maybe that's why. But this will be a seasonal nest, so only one breeding, and then the sun and the rain and the wind over the time strips it, makes it fall off, and then it will just rot and go back into the soil. Then if there are possibilities for other smaller birds, scaly feathered finches, some other birds, in the winter season, if there is one of those still intact, they will also use those nests to keep themselves nice and warm. But typically a seasonal thing, and also those grass nests especially don't survive fire if a large fire sweeps through an area. So Morgan and I have been choosing the roads less travelled, and this one in our recent rains actually was a river. So it has been a little bit challenging to drive. There's some areas where the road has disappeared a little bit. You can just see up ahead here how strong the water flowed. It just chooses the easiest path, and very often the easiest path is actually the road. So just keep a lookout for quails. We've been seeing a couple of the common quails dashing across in front of us. We're going to carry on seeing what we can find, but we're going to send you across to Steve at Djuma.
Yes, well, I'm sure this bird here would also like to catch a quail or two. Though they do feed on snakes almost primarily. There's nothing to stop them catching small mammals and small birds. Watch out. Here comes a poo. There we go. We've got a brown snake eagle, everybody. Very beautiful. When it first arrived, it was a headless brown snake eagle because it had turned itself all the way around, was preening itself, so it had no head. But we knew that probably wouldn't last for long. And now we've been able to identify it. And you can see the featherless legs, which is a dead giveaway of not a true eagle. But their general sort of posture is quite a sort of bulbous head. The head is quite sort of bulbous, and the back is normally quite straight. Very much like a goshawk. Goshawks stand very straight.
Finger going on to you, Juma.
Sorry about my game drive. But they've also got a very yellow eye, if you get the opportunity. But this, for me, is one of the easiest birds to identify from a distance. Oh, and when they fly, they've got almost transparent wings from underneath. Almost transparent. Actually got a wonderful raptor book here, which I'll show you. Let's have a little look-see, shall we? The brown snake eagle 143. You've got to take it off scan if you don't want the radar to keep. That's the western banded. Here's the brown snake eagle. So from a distance, you can see that it's got this sort of very puffy head. And when I show you the one up at the top here, you'll see that very sort of upright posture. Very puffy head, upright posture. And the yellow eye is very easy to see. Size, you could almost confuse it with the Wahlbergs, but the feathers on the legs and the eye, the lack of feathers on the legs, should I say. But from underneath, we'll have a look at this one on the right. Underneath, it's got the very transparent white. Makes it quite easy to see them when they're flying in the air. You don't always get to see these bands very strongly, but that sort of clear underneath wing pattern makes it quite an easy or characteristic bird to identify. But from a distance when they stand, very, very easy to identify through this sort of posture that we see over here. This very sort of upright standing, and the head always looks a little bit sort of bulbous, if that makes any sense. Coast side they do, but they don't eat just brown snakes. The name brown snake is actually given to them because of their they are brown, and they feed primarily on snakes, but not exclusively. But if we have a look at their legs over here, this one at the bottom, you'll see that they've got enormous amounts of, sorry, that was my fault, of padding in and around the leg. And what that basically does is it creates a sort of area where envenomation is difficult. Because if you feed on snakes, and snakes like to bite back, there's a very good chance you might get bitten. But that's just on the legs. There's nothing to stop the snake from biting the body. It was an incredible sighting years ago with, I think, Tundi and a big snake and a snake eagle. And the snake eagle was trying to get the snake. And I think it was Tundi. And then the snake had bitten the eagle, and then Tundi was coming in and interacting. I wish I'd seen that live. That would have been quite something. So definitely, I mean, food, pretty sure mostly snakes, including venomous snakes, but also lizards. So I'm sure they're also able to catch birds and small birds on the ground and mammals, but it's not really what they're known for. They wait and they see something, they come and land down and try and snap its neck from behind. Very good. The brown snake eagle. I was watching the show the other day, and watching Pinder with all of the other different types of snake eagles is quite special. The western banded, I think. Got to see a couple of those up in, or this was the southern banded. Got to see a couple of those up in the Mara, which is very nice. We don't get them this side. Only the black-chested and the brown snake eagles. But then the bateleur could, argument's sake, be classified as a snake eagle as well. They're very good snake hunters. Okay, so we haven't located any tracks for Thandi or Marips anywhere. Just doing a little bit of a movement around, updating on the radio about where all the activity happened last night. She came and collected him from up here and then walked all the way down. So he was actually on Djuma. He was on Djuma. She came and collected him. They walked all the way down to Chitwa, had an interaction with a hyena on the way. One of the landowners took a wonderful video of that. And then went back to a kill. And then the hyena somehow stole the kill. Probably had to do with the young male leopard feeding and being a little bit too rough and dropping it. That's what happens. That's what happens. But difficult to see any tracks on the road because it's been walked on by a massive elephant or two. And the road is just covered with elephant tracks. I'm hearing beeping, but no words said. Did I miss something there?
So just beeps.
Nope. Oh, found a leopard on the road. A very slow and round leopard. This one's quite quick, actually. Sorry, everybody, you all jumped, didn't you? That'll get you to send your questions through, won't it? Yes, indeed. Please do send through questions and comments, everybody. It does help us to engage in the activities. A leopard tortoise, very commonly seen out during and after rains. Good time for them to move around and to find some females. They are grazers after all, and they will drink from puddles in the road. So they don't have to go very far after a train, but you often find them moving out and about. I've actually seen 3 or 4 today, leopard tortoises. And just like, oh, he's still there. He's decided to hide. Let me see him, Sebi, just here. I won't get him. We'll try. Let's try. Very camouflage. Is that too close? Leslie, they get a lot bigger than this. That's for sure. Very camouflage. He knows that he's been spotted. I don't know what the weight is of the largest leopard tortoise, but I'm trying to think of a comparison. The largest leopard tortoise I've seen is probably about the size of a little bit bigger than a football. I'm not sure. Maybe bigger. Not an American football, a soccer football. Very shy. Sorry, fella. We'll leave you to your hidey hole there in the thickets. Wow. Well, I've got a little phone. My friend in my ear said the largest leopard tortoise is 2 feet long and 80 pounds. Well, about 40 kilograms. That's a pretty decent sized leopard tortoise. Pretty decent sized leopard tortoise. This fellow's got a long way to go. Okay, I'm going to leave him. Or her. I can't tell you a male or female this way. I'd have to influence its behavior to tell you, and I'm not going to influence its behavior. Amazing camouflage indeed. Indeed. And it's got its house on its back. How many of you can say you can carry everything you own on your back? Not many. Not many. Okay, so we haven't been able to access these areas in a few days. So it's nice to be able to check it out and have a look. Lisa, the only large bird I think that would really be able to have a go at tortoises is a ground hornbill. I don't think any of the other raptors really have the ability to. Could be wrong. Maybe an African harrier hawk could. But I've definitely seen a, what are they called? Hornbills. Southern ground hornbills killing tortoises. It's pretty sad, I suppose, but it is food for an endangered species, and they've obviously evolved the ability to feed where others can't. Okay, well, we're going to bumble down to this cut line towards the south, and we send you over to Dan, who's on a bumble of his own.
Welcome back, everybody. It was just quite a special cuckoo. It looked like maybe an African or a common cuckoo. They just stopped there, and then notoriously quite shy birds flew away, unfortunately. But currently heading in a westerly direction. I mean, the sun is gone behind a cloud, but it will be setting in that side as well. Heading more into the northern parts of the reserve, a place we haven't been for a long time. I'm going to go and try one of the roads. Hopefully it's dried up a little bit. It's an area the last time I was here, there was a female leopard. She's got two of her older cubs. I'm sure many of you know her as the Tswalu female. Well, there's a European roller that's just flew past us. It's actually stopped here. Let's have a little chat about it. So a good place to go and look for her is probably around that area. I've even got a feeling she's had more cubs. So go have a look for some fresh tracks in the rain, on the roads and around the watering hole over the past few days since the rain. Beautiful European roller. I mean, at this time of the year, there are lots of them around. And this year particularly, there have been quite a lot. Last year and the year before, there were actually not so many of them around. Beautiful colors. Nice blue, completely all the way over. And I mean, I'm sure many of you have seen many lilac-breasted rollers on this show. Slightly bigger than a lilac-breasted roller, this bird. Got quite a big, strong bill or beak. And that's used to catch all sorts of prey species, even up to like small rodents. These rollers have been known to eat. Mostly insects and things. And you see how it's standing at the top of the tree here, quite comfortably and confidently, in fact. Turning its head side to side, watching, looking. And I wouldn't be surprised if, even if we're sitting here, because it's given us the kind of allowance to be so close, we're probably around 10 meters away, if it doesn't even fly off and try and catch something while we're here. With the abundance of insects around at the moment, that'll give it a great chance at feeding. And that's actually what's brought this European roller, I mean, it's even in the name, many thousands of miles, all the way from like kind of Eastern Europe into Spain, that kind of area during our winter time. And during our summertime, they come all the way, several thousand miles, just to come and feed on the abundance of insects that we have here. They don't breed down here. They'll come down here and feed on the insects, fill themselves right up on serious amounts of protein before they need to go back to Europe, where they'll actually end up breeding. And then once they've bred and their chicks have fledged, they'll then come back and their chicks will come with them as well. Quite amazing, actually. You'll see them arrive, and it's amazing in different years, the different conditions. And I'm not 100% sure on the reason that this year there's particularly so many European rollers. I mean, as I said, they don't breed here, but they come and feed here. Maybe just so many of them have survived because we've had so much rain and the abundance of insects this year has been quite good. So maybe lots of them have survived. You'll see in a several mile journey from Europe down to South Africa, it's quite an exhausting trip. And you'll see all the way along their trip through Africa, there'll be predator birds that hang around and kind of wait for exhausted birds to kind of stop and maybe just show any signs of weakness, and they will kind of just pick them off as they come along. It's quite a treacherous journey, but well worth it at the end with the abundance of insects. And you'll see during the winter time, when these European rollers go back, you'll see the lilac-breasted rollers that we see quite a lot more of. during that time. I mean, they've got that purple or lilac breast. It's in the name as well. You see them lots more in the wintertime. During the summertime, these European rollers being quite a lot bigger than them and feeding on very similar things. I mean, very similar body structures, bill structures. See, they're a little bit bigger, so they can be quite bullish to the lilac-breasted rollers, and you actually don't see the lilac-breasted rollers around too much at the moment. I saw an interesting interaction not so long ago. The lilac-breasted rollers, when they're breeding, they can be quite territorial and fiercely so. They were even chasing these European rollers away quite confidently. They chase every bird away quite aggressively, in fact. But Veronica, is it missing a bit of its bottom beak? I'm going to have a closer look, but I would assume the answer is no. It might just look like that because the top part of the beak is a little bit longer. Bit longer than the bottom one, and that'll be used almost as like a sword or a stabbing mechanism, whether it's catching a little insect or even, as I said, small rodents. I've seen a lilac-breasted roller, which is much smaller than this one, eating a small little mouse. I can't remember what mouse it was. It was a few years ago. But that's what that in the top beak is, or the top part of the bill is quite a lot bigger and thicker than the bottom part. You see that over edge? Maybe it is broken, actually. It's quite a lot. Pick up my binoculars and have a closer look. It actually does look a little bit broken. You're right. How that happened, I'm not sure. But the top bill is normally just a little bit longer, but in this case it looks like it's quite a lot longer, and it does look a little bit broken. Maybe in an attempt to catch something, it broke off. Maybe this is also an older bird, maybe on its last trip to South Africa. I wonder if it might make its way back to Europe. I wonder if this might not end up being one of those birds that end up becoming exhausted along the way. But what a good observation. Thanks for pointing that out to me about that bottom bill. But I'm going to keep going, let this European roller keep hunting and see if it finds any insects. I'm going to send you over to Tswalu in the meantime.
So look what we found. Morgan and I are not in the shade, but the scrub hare is in the shade. He dashed out in front of us, dashed down the road, and here today, gone tomorrow. Oh no. He's been sitting there for a while, just sort of catching his breath after running that short distance in the shade. So he just did a bit of a quick zigzag, and then he stopped there, and he's just been catching his breath, but he was just sitting very, very quietly. Morgan and I were just sitting very quietly, hoping that he would stay there. Even FC said, well, we'll come to you if he stays there for a minute, and there he did. He stayed for a minute and 20 seconds, and then he was gone. But it is an unusual thing to see a scrub hare out in the heat now, but I think we just flushed it from underneath one of the bushes when we were driving past, and then he thought, oh, maybe they don't see me if I just stand still. And then after a while, maybe us even talking now, raised voice, that also is possible. That made him dash off like that. But it was quite a nice little quick glimpse of a scrub hare that we're normally seeing nocturnally. And those big, big ears, pretty much like really big radar dishes. So they have got exceptional hearing. And clearly he heard us. That was a nice surprise. We didn't expect that at all. We'll carry on going. He might pop out again, but I doubt it. We'll see. Yeah. So Jean is asking the question, what is the difference between a hare and a rabbit? So rabbits tend to run more than they hop, have slightly longer back legs and longer ears, and they also live in what's called a shallow depression, so called a form, a shallow depression just above the ground, whereas rabbits tend to burrow, so they make a hole underneath the ground, and then, I'm just going to stop there, otherwise we're going to shake everything. So a rabbit will have shorter ears, tend to hop more than they run, and then living in an underground burrow. And there's also a difference. I think one of them they call the youngsters kits and the other one leverets, but now, right now it's a bit scrambled and somebody can Google it and you can see, but there is even a difference in what the baby the babies are called, whether they're rabbits or scrub hares. So just give me a second here. I'm just going over like an old cattle grid. We're going to send you across to some kudu at Ingala.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, as we've left that European roller, we've come into quite a grassy area, and strangely, we found two beautiful kudu bulls. And the reason I say strangely is that they don't feed on grass that much, kudu. They are predominantly browsers. Well, and as I say that, it pops its head down. Let's see if it does pick up some grass or if it's not a small shoot from up. There we go. So you see how it's browsing on the top there. Very rarely eating grass and spending a lot of time rather in the thicker areas. Two of them together as well, and this is quite with this abundance of food. These two kudu bulls, the one actually looks to me slightly bigger. It's got an incredibly big, thick neck. With this abundance in food, they've really got to take advantage of there being lots of nutrients and lots of food around to get themselves big and strong for the winter time. So when the winter time comes, that's when these males will be rutting and kind of competing for females. And look at the shape of those horns, those spiraled horns. They are quite magnificent and big and proud. And look at the size of its neck as well. While it's turning like that, let's have a look at the size of it. Super strong. Look at that beard on the front side of its neck as well. That beard will become quite long and quite proud. And you'll see when it becomes the winter time, they want to try and make themselves as big as they can. Obviously, the horns have got quite a lot of genetics behind the size in them, and that they can't do too much about. But they can feed as much as they can to ensure that their bodies are big and their necks are big, and they will in fact use those horns, their neck and their size to kind of intimidate. There's actually another kudu that's just come out of the bushes here, another smaller one. Much thinner neck, but you see also feeding at the top of the tree, moving through the grass, looking for the trees. This, although it does look a little bit smaller and maybe a little bit younger, its horns are quite a lot longer and quite closer together as well. So when the winter time comes, the kudus with the biggest, thickest necks, the biggest beard, the tallest and biggest horns will kind of outcompete the rest of the other ones without having to fight, without getting into a competition. So it looks like they're seeming to move into the big rest of the bush. I'm going to send you over to Steve at Djuma while I keep going along my way.
Fantastic kudu bulls they are. One of the most impressive antelope, aren't they? But this, ladies and gentlemen, is by far one of the most impressive birds you'll find around the water. A beautiful, beautiful bird. And I've got a quiz for the audience today. Please, will you identify male or female for me, ladies and gentlemen? One answer. #WildEarth or third on YouTube chat stream. What is this, male or female? You have 50% chance of getting it right. And don't worry, we will discuss the answer. So if you get it wrong because you just guessed wrong, I will explain it to you. It's a very easy answer. I think Seb's giving you enough. Yes, there's more than enough information there to identify. And this is one of our sort of very, very sort of special birds. In their numbers are very low, very, very low. I think last I heard there's only 60 breeding pairs in the Kruger. I don't know what that is at the moment. And obviously long-lived bird. So one of the big six. One of the big six that people come to South Africa to see. I know many of you have heard of the Big Five. Have you heard of the Big Six? Well, there's one of them. The saddle-billed stork. Now, you can see that looks like it's a saddle on the beak, doesn't it? Very awkward. Very awkward way to scratch one's chest, but when you've got to scratch, needs must. Notice the saddle, the yellow saddle on the face there, as well as the black. Well, Samantha has got an answer and Debbie has an answer. Now, I'm going to say that Samantha is correct. Debbie, unfortunately, you had 50% chance of getting it right this afternoon. Please keep your answers coming through. The quizzes, it's good to let them drag out a little bit. But you'll notice that the beak on the male and female is the same. The yellow on the top of the face is the same. But you notice this individual has got a yellow eye. Can you see the eye is very yellow? And now that little bit of red on the beak, just below the eye, underneath the yellow saddle. Now, there's no little yellow stirrup hanging off there, sort of on the chin. So yellow eye and lack of the yellow stirrup. So that's the two telltale signs. One has got a yellow eye and one has not got a yellow eye with a yellow stirrup. What exactly the purpose of the yellow eye versus the yellow stirrup? Very hard for me to say, but it's obviously got to do with mate recognition. Otherwise, they'd all look the same. And you'd have all sorts of birds partnering up that were of the same sex. And that, well, as we know, wouldn't work very well when it comes to reproduction. But a few more answers coming through, no doubt. Saddle stork, very special to see them. I was fortunate enough in the Masai Mara to see a group of youngsters, which I thought was very, very cool. Very, very cool. They were running around begging their adults for food. They looked like little marabou storks. Because they were brown or beige. They didn't really have any of the lovely coloration that the adults have. And of course, monogamous. A large platform nest normally built on top of a tall tree, usually near water. I can't say I've actually really ever encountered a proper nest of one. Elhan has also got it right. Elhan, you have got it beautifully. Now, everybody, for those of you who are uncertain, Elhan and, was it Debbie? Sorry if I got the first name, Amy or Debbie, I forget who it was. But if you have all said male, then unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, you were wrong. I'm sorry, it's not about who's right or wrong today. It's all about learning. And the male has got a dark eye with the strangest little yellow thing hanging off his chin. What purpose that serves, I really don't know. And the female has got a very bright yellow eye without the little yellow wattle on the chin. So, nice to be learning. I think that's what's so important about what we provide here, is the ability to learn. And it's not about right or wrong. It's about learning as we go. Last year we did quite a lot of bushwalk segments where I did track and signs for everybody. We walk around and do about 50 or so tracks in the bush. And then everyone would guess. And there's a lot of learning that comes with it. And there's a lot of education when we learn why it's that track and why it's not that track. But it's also fun to have a guess at what it might be. Obviously, with a large bird like this, it's 50% yes or 50% no. But anyway, we're going to send you over to Ambiangala, who've got a special bird of their own.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, I've actually quite unintentionally flushed this bird out of where it was actually sleeping. It's quite a special bird. It's quite tricky to look at some of the features that we've got here. It's a bit far away and I don't really want to chase it. But it's a predominantly nocturnal bird. And as I say, I've flushed it. It's come from underneath one of these trees on our right-hand side where it was sleeping. This is a bronze-winged courser. So quite a special bird, in fact, that we don't see around too often, certainly not during the day. And you'll see it kind of favors Mopani woodlands. And that's why during the nighttime, we see quite a lot of them. But during the daytime, I don't think I've seen too many of them. Sometimes see Temmings coursers around, but the bronze-winged courser is lacking kind of like a rufous crown, which this one certainly doesn't have. It's also quite a large courser, this one. But a special bird to see, particularly during the day, feeding on mostly insects during the night. And because of its secretive behavior and being nocturnal, there's actually very little known about this bird. I know they're not my guests, but guests that frequent Ngala, they get driven or drive with Eric, mostly huge birders. Got one of the biggest lifeless that I've seen. I can't remember what it was around. But he's quite particular with birds that he sees, and he has to photograph each bird to confirm it. And I remember he's come here many, many, many times to exclusively try and photograph this bird. And unfortunately, he's never been successful. So it's for us to get it on camera like this is quite unique and it's special. And I knew it would be a good one to stop at. And it's quite interesting. I think the reason that we found this one, I was mentioning how it prefers the Mopani woodland and will often be seen there. It's as we're heading further into the northern part of our reserve, the habitat or the vegetation will slowly start to change, and that'll be due to the soils. And as we head a bit closer north, right in the north of our reserve, we do have quite a mature Mopani woodland, and it can be quite tricky. Some people find Mopani woodland frustrating to move between, but it's unique. It's got an amazing home to different sorts of birds. This is a perfect exhibition of that. And different birds, different predators. I mean, lions and leopards that hang around in Mopani woodland and Mopani veld. They've got completely different habits to ones that hang around in this kind of open bush willow country. And it's amazing. Wild dogs in the Mopanis as well. Lots of buffalo herds at the moment. Oh, is that also going to move off into the long grass and maybe go and rest for the next few hours before it gets completely dark. And that's when this bird will become far more active and moving around. You often see them in pairs as well. I wonder if maybe the other one isn't around, maybe still resting where we spooked this one from, unfortunately. It looks a lot like an old plover or a lapwing, don't you think? But definitely a good bird to get. Actually, we're talking about special birds. This is certainly a good one and a special one to see. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try not to chase this one too far, but I'm going to keep going, see what else we can find this afternoon while I send you somewhere else.
How insane is that animal?
This is out of this world. Fantastic. Good, Mama.
Wow, what a way to start off. Just such an incredible privilege to be out here. It just keeps on delivering.
There you go, there you go. Heart is pumping right now.
3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Look at this, everybody. We've got a live kill.
The cock's holding the tail. It's holding tight. Lucky wildebeest.
There's nowhere to go. This is a disaster in the making.
This is the first leucistic zebra I have ever seen in my life.
Oh, here comes a lion. Run, little guy. Go on.
Something that I have never seen before in my entire life that you are now watching live.
My heart is in my mouth, everybody.
Look at this. It's gonna make it. It's going, it's going.
This is just too magical. Hi, little guys. That's great, isn't it?
Has it just pretended to be dead? That is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Look at that. Scuba Steve has got a friend.
You've got a friend in me.
It couldn't be a better morning. This is just too special.
Oh my goodness, we've got a turtle.
How epic is the fact that we're coming to you live on the Chobe River? It's the most incredible feeling to be here. This is live and we're in Rwanda. This is a very, very different adventure, charged with emotion.
Look at that little zebra about to be born. There's the head. Oh, you clever mare. Well done.
I did not think I would ever face my fears like this.
Welcome back, everybody, to Chitwa. We waited for our stork to fly off. A little breeze came and she just lifted her wings and glided off into it. It was quite special. Maybe she was worried about this crocodile that was watching her out. But what I'm going to do right now, because there's this wonderful sound of water rushing over here, I'm going to just be quiet for a little while. A little bit early for our silent moments, but there's no time like the present. Making such soothing sounds, you say. Indeed, in the end, so calm and relaxing. I'm feeling incredibly calm right now. Truly blessed we are to be able to spend time in these moments. Truly blessed to be able to share them with all of you. Dion, sometimes we just have to switch off to realize how loud and noisy the bush actually is. Dion says he loves the silent segments, how wonderful the noises are. So many sounds, and sometimes it's nice to just listen and try not to identify what they all are. I find that very hard in that I know so many of the birds that you hear them, you always want to identify it, just hear it. You don't have to identify. It's what we do as humans. Everything has to go into a box. Everything has to be checked. It's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. It's the inquisitiveness. Did a silent walk years ago with some students. The objective of the silent walk was not to identify anything, just to feel and smell and absorb, not speak. Crossed the line, everybody stepped over the line, and we got back over the line. And a couple of my students had missed the point. They had written down about 50 things that they wanted to ask me afterwards, what that was. So it's amazing how the human mind wants to just identify, understand everything. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. It's who we are. But sometimes just hear it and let it go. Just smell it and feel it, let it go. You don't need to analyze everything. Isabel, the flowing sound's just coming from the little weir here where the water is overflowing on the spillway, which we are parked on. Basically a little extension of the dam wall to protect it from being cut underneath, to cut around. I've just put a little bit of solidity here, because water eats away soil, eats away dirt, eats away compacted mud. No matter how well you've compacted it, the power of water can do incredible things. So wherever we've got major crossings, or what we call causeways in these areas, due to the fact that we have seasonal rainfall, it might not always be as profound as it is now. It's important to put down some form of base, otherwise that area is going to constantly get washed away, because we're creating it as a thoroughfare, so the water spills through it and goes through it very quickly. If it was natural vegetation, natural reeds and natural grass and vegetation holding the soil, well, first of all, we wouldn't be able to drive through it, and second of all, it wouldn't be a road. And roads, unfortunately, in areas where cars travel, generally are quite open and lead to channeling of water, and water that speeds up, picks up momentum, picks up velocity, and has the most incredible destructive power when it does so. Nature in its design is always to slow down the water. Rivers meander, streams trickle and meander until there's a waterfall, and they slow down again. Rapids are all there to slow down, oxygenate the water. And then reeds and wetlands are to slow and soak in, absorb the moisture. That's the natural process of things. Water, the currency of life, always following gravity. Just goes to show how the streams are still flowing. This is all from the Muwanini. All of the rainfall from uphill, the catchment. AJ, obviously around the world many dams have got control sluices and gates, but out here there's nowhere near as advanced as that. It's just sort of structures to keep the water in, and if it gets too much there needs to be an overflow, otherwise it'll eat away. So there's no such sort of structures in these certain areas for changing and controlling the amount of water. There's not as much pressure on these dam walls or on these walls as you would find in enormous dams that we find across the world, where there's huge walls. And the reason why they have to have those different sluice gates is because when the water isn't able to get out, it starts to flood. And so you need to get to a certain level, and when the water starts to flood, you need to let it flow out. And back flooding is often a cause of severe damage. And because man has invented or designed those dams, they need to be able to be responsible then for when there's too much water to be able to allow it to flow down. Dam walls as well are designed in a way to keep and regulate the flow of water. There's some dams or some rivers in South Africa, the Luvuvu, for example, that is mandated and ecologically mandated that a certain amount of water has to flow constantly through that river, even though there's a dam upstream. It's been mandated. There's a river that has to flood and flow. So there with the dam wall, you're able to control the process. But there's none of that in these small reserves. Those are all very, very high technologically advanced structures. And they go even more technologically advanced when you look at things like the Hoover Dam and somewhere else in the world. They're huge dams with hydroelectric power, where that water is dropping down onto turbines and then generating enormous amounts of electricity. The power of water really is splendid. And sounds beautiful as well. The shape and face of this earth has been shaped by water over eons of time. Slow, gradual destruction of the sediment and the soil and the rock. Okay, well, we're probably going to move on from here and pick up some more pace, see what we can find, but in the meantime, I'm going to send you back over to Deirdre.
So, welcome back to Tswalu. You wouldn't expect us to be driving through this amount of water, but at the end of January, in some of our areas across the reserve, we had unprecedented rains. We had 250 mils of rain in 5 hours and caused a massive flood. The one staff member's house actually in the middle of the Kalahari ended up being flooded. Totally unexpected, but we're actually driving across the way that the flood went across. It was probably hundreds of meters wide going from right to left, just in a massive path that took probably about a week for all the water to subside. But you can just see, I mean, we've just been driving here, but you just see how much water is actually still lying around. And you can just see the pure sort of destructive path of the water. You can just see, maybe Morgan can swing and show you some of this here on the left-hand side. So you can just imagine a wide section of that, probably at least half a kilometer or more wide, just flowing across the open areas. So there was a question about animals and being inundated with flood water. The animals in these areas, if they couldn't get to higher ground, would certainly have probably met a dire end, because it would have been quite challenging. But to still have this volume of water lying around, what are we now, we're almost 10 days plus since the floods. It is unbelievable that this is still what the Kalahari looks like at this stage. Beautiful, all the butterflies have been quite busy. It hasn't done our roads any favours, I'll definitely tell you that, when you don't expect heavy rains. So we have had to make the odd few detours just so that we could get around some of these really large puddles. Also got to just speed up a little bit, otherwise Morgan's going to end up pushing the car. One of us has to drive, and of course that would be me, so sorry Morgan. Oh, what? There's a beautiful, the common vagrants, all the butterflies, but as soon as I go past, you're just going to see, they're just behind my head. but as soon as I drive up, you'll see them all come up. So they just getting moisture out of the soil. They're the beautiful common vagrants. Here we've got some nice African monarchs in there. But I thought it's awesome to be able to drive you through these sections because seeing is believing. This hut is a little bit deeper than both Morgan and I expected, actually. Last week when I drove through this puddle, it was to the runner boards of the vehicle, so it just gives you an idea. Well, there we go. A lot deeper than expected, as I said. And then we've got a tricky sandy patch now that we have to negotiate as well. Are you still on board there, Morgan? Yeah. Okay, good. So we just have to keep up a little bit of momentum in the sand. So Lorna is asking what animals are most impacted by the heavy rains. I would probably have to say the animals that rely on living in burrows under the ground. Things like rodents, for sure, in these areas that weren't expecting sudden rain, and and even they can climb the odd plant, but that doesn't really help. So I would say oh, did you see that? Mummy and little piggies. Oh, she's gone. She went very quickly, but Warthog and all the little piglets. That was a nice surprise. We'll just go a bit more forward, but she's hightailed it out of there. Literally, she is gone. Nope. Well, hopefully you got a glimpse of that. Mummy and her piglets. I saw 4 at least. That's typical. So you'll have to play that back in slow-mo if you wanted to see the pigs crossing the road, but that was mother and at least 4 piglets that did that at speed. And they, funnily enough, would also be animals that would be vulnerable, but they do tend to build a bit of a shelf in their burrows. So the piglets are higher up if there is a water level rising, but I think in this particular situation there was so much more water they would have been safer by moving further away from the water than trying to stay in their burrows at the time. So yeah, you can see unfortunately the road became the river. So while I navigate this, I'm going to send you across to Stephen Juma.
Welcome back to Chitu, everybody, where the bum shake is real. A very nice bird to see, a very easy bird to identify, in fact. There's a little sort of white C on the shoulder. It's an aquatic bird. And the bum shake is often quite diagnostic for this bird itself. It's not a wagtail. It is a common sandpiper. And there's a number of sandpipers that we see around these areas. But obviously the common is very common, but the little white ring on the shoulder. And so you can see that, it keeps catching stuff. You see that little C on the shoulder. Oh, he's got a fish. Oh, he's fishing. Swallow. That was a quick swallow, hey? So where the water is overflowing here, this bird is taking advantage. So now talking about wagtails, there are wagtails around, but the mountain wagtail is a bird that lives specifically up in the mountains on waterfalls on the rocks like this, going in and around and feeding on insects that come down from the mountain. Doesn't occur anywhere else but on little waterfalls where the water's flowing like that from streams coming down the mountain. So it's amazing how habitat type and sort of how animals will fit into certain niches. We get the pied wagtail around here, which is quite common, and the Cape from time to time. The mountain looks just like the Cape, but he's a little bit longer in the tail. And we found him on a stream like this, right up against the waterfall. You'd almost be certain it is the mountain wagtail. But in this case, this sandpiper is using different skills of food acquisition today. You can easily see that C on the shoulder, can't you? Makes it quite easy to identify from others of its sort. Obviously, it's a non-breeding migrant. coming all the way from the north, usually departing by about next month. You don't often find them in groups. Oh, it's very, very busy. As with all of our migratory Palearctic sort of water birds, they're very tricky. They're very tricky to identify. So you've got to go with as many sorts of diagnostic features as you can. But that shoulder crescent is diagnostic. Very, very diagnostic. And the bobbing of the tail, very, very diagnostic. It's not necessarily a tail, but it's more of a bum shake, isn't it? I mean, wagtails, you know, the wagtails really do a bit of a tail shake. You can confuse this one with the green sandpiper, which lacks the bum shake as well as that. See, like there it would be tricky because that C isn't as obvious on the shoulder. It's that white supercilium of sorts through the eye. Yes, it's almost there. Very common in our summer months. Okay, well, we're probably going to hang around here and do a little bit more birding.
If you love to watch Wild Earth, then we are inviting you to join our Explorers program. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic Wild Earth expeditions. Join our guides for a chat around the fire, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn allows us to escape into nature every single day.
The reason why we see that wildebeest by himself is because he's a male, or a bull, as we typically would call him. And what he does is that he marks and defends an area. Essentially, he is looking for the ultimate piece of land or prime property. Needs to have good grazing, needs to have a water source close by. And not too far away from here, there's a sickle bush thicket that would provide just enough shelter from the wind and the rain.
My name is Lauren, and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me, and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Oh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Hi, I'm Nikki, your guide here at Ambion Ngala. So my favorite animal in the African bush definitely has to be the zebra, because like people, with our fingerprints, every single zebra has a different stripe pattern. And, of course, a group of zebras together is called the dazzle. How unique is that? Come and join me or one of my colleagues here in Ngala for a sunrise and sunset safari on Wild Earth.
Welcome back to Chit everybody, and this is the pied or African pied wagtail. Oh, we've got a bit of movement in the water, well spotted, Sebastian. I wonder if this crocodile is toning in on the wagtail. African pied is one of the easier birds to identify because it's black and white and it's got a proper little bum or tail shake. So all wagtails have that very, very characteristic tail shake. And pied, for those of you who aren't aware, is generally refers to a black and white individual. Pied crow, piebald stallion, for example. All of those words come in to that. So the crocodile is slowly moving towards the bird. I don't think he's going to catch a small bird on the bank, but you never know. Needs must. Look how gently moves through the water. Perfectly adapted. Those ridges on the back help to not break the water, not to leave ripples. The tail moves a little bit, causing ripples. But the tail is just muscle, huge amounts of muscle to allow that animal to propel itself through the water at incredible speed. Its nose and eyes and ears all on the same level so that it can be pretty much submerged with the ability to still see and smell. Not that I know why a crocodile needs to smell, but obviously it can breathe. So breathing is probably quite an important element, but they can hold their breath for at least an hour, which I think is pretty incredible. Here's the pied wagtail again. He's just taken a few cautious steps away from the bank. There's the typical wagging of tail, a very high-pitched noise that they make. Come on, show us your wagtail. Well, I don't know what the reason is for the wagging of the tail. I don't know the reason at all. I don't know what the purpose is, but it doesn't seem to distract anything, doesn't seem to serve any purpose other than to just keep them more constantly moving and maybe expend energy. I don't know. If anybody knows why wagtails, got a few visitors. Got a few visitors who are listening going, hello, what's going on over here? These three have just emerged from the other side. They wondered what's all the noises happening here. Oh, wonderful, Seb. I can hear it on top of the tree. Top right, can you see it there, the Dedrick's cuckoo? We don't often get these birds on camera, the Dedrick's. Very nice. A brood parasite, often have them hanging around the nests of weavers, although they will also parasitize on the pied wagtail. They've got a variety of species, bishops and weavers and robins, that they'll parasitize on, and what you're seeing now is the male making lots of noise, and then while he makes noise and attracts the birds, the female often slips in to lay her eggs in the nest of others. Just going to allow you to enjoy the beautiful tones. Can you just go a bit further back there, Seb? There's a hippo eating the bank just under those weavers' nests there. The heron above him. His mouth is busy. Can't wait. Can't wait for later, Mum. I'm going to eat it now. That's what you call having a snack when no one's looking. Oh, there's a thick knee just jumped into shot and the heron above it. And there are the weavers. I think the majority of them are masked weavers. I haven't actually spent any time. What else have we done? That just... Yes, you are formidable.
the water. We're back into sort of the more concrete soils, and we're going in a westerly direction, pretty much up and over the dunes. Oh, there we go. We've been trying to find a gemsbok that would stay for the shot, because we've had 2 sets that run away from us as soon as we stop. Spoke too soon. So that's sometimes what happens before you come to us. So he was a nice male gemsbok. Let me just go forward a little bit. He hasn't run too far, so he might still be able to think. And ironically, we've just seen another scrub here. I just said we don't see them often, and then we've just seen another one. So gemsbok are one of the ones that like to eat those melons, those wild cucumbers, sometimes called bitter melons. Sometimes I think some people call them gemsbok creepers. So it does depend, but they don't mind eating them at all. And every now and again, if you catch a gemsbok by surprise, you can actually see he runs away with almost takeaways, because he's trying to eat the entire vine or creeper, and it lands up that he's still busy chewing it when he's trying to run away. So he just lands up running away with a piece and eating as he goes. There's some fawn-coloured larks calling. Very pretty. So we're quite far down in the south of the reserve at this stage, so a lot more of the sort of open grass areas. There's not so much of that sour grass. There's nice bushman silky grass, which is one of the top favourites for the grazing animals. So how we know male from female gemsbok, because both of them have horns. The males tend to have very long, thin horns, but they also tend to be a little bit further out. And then the female's horns can even be longer than the male's. And that's not something that you see very often, is the squat to defecate, which, yeah. Oh, excuse me, he's asking for some privacy. He's gone behind the tree now. That is something you don't see very often on live TV, that's for sure. So they're not like a wildebeest that they'll defecate in exactly the same place daily. They kind of just, as they go, they'll have other means of being territorial. But they. No. For a second there, the Land Rover didn't want to start. Then we were going to be doing our segments right from here. So carry on with us up and over the dunes. We can see what else we can see that's been crossing the road. So it sounds like we can send you across to Ngala. They've got something to show you.
Welcome back, everybody. We've managed to find a small little dazzle of zebra, and maybe I can't even call this a dazzle. I mean, it is a group of them, but it's 3 stallions, which is quite interesting. 3 males together. It's not very often that you see this. I mean, more often than not, you'll see one dominant stallion in a dazzle like we saw this morning, with a couple of females around, and occasionally you'll see younger stallions also in these dazzles. I mean, while they're standing like this, it's quite amazing to see the difference or compare their stripes. I mean, the 2 at the back have got quite thick stripes, particularly on their rumps. The one closest to us has got quite thin stripes with very pronounced shadow stripes, or in that white stripe there's quite a dark one. Even getting closer to that one that's closer to us, front shoulders, look how narrow those stripes are. It's quite amazing. I mean, all the stripes are unique, very similar to kind of a fingerprint, just feeding and moving through, and then the stripes seem to get quite thicker on his neck. I mean, that's just his unique markings, which is quite special. And we chatted a little bit about it this morning, but these 3 males, they don't look like they're too scarred up. They are all in great shape, big and strong, not too scarred up. The one at the back right, has got a fairly significant scar. Let's see, on its back right leg, just behind its bum. Can you see there? So that looks like a claw mark from a lion at some point. And I'm sure that lion caught one hell of a kick, which very likely chased it away. And as you can see, it's not a... look at those tails going. It's quite entertaining, actually. Just going all over the show. No cohorts there together. I'm sure they're even chasing flies off of one another, in fact. But quite interestingly, I wonder if these look like younger males to me. I wonder if they're not just spending some time together for now, just feeding, getting bigger and stronger, until they will kind of join a dazzle themselves. And when they do that, it's quite a risky business. I mean, zebras look quite pretty with these stripes, but they can be incredibly aggressive, particularly towards one another, biting and kicking. So when these males will want to join a dazzle, they'll go in and join with a big, stronger stallion who will be in charge of his harem, which will be several females. And when these males go in there, their intention is to actually start a little dazzle of their own. And how they'll do that is they'll slowly enter a group with the dominant stallion. The dominant stallion will be very aware of their presence and will watch them carefully and will actually initially try and chase them off, and they'll keep coming back until they kind of get integrated into this group. But they will be submissive towards the male, and in this time period, may be several months in fact, these young males, and I'm sure many fathers can attest to this as well, will have their eyes on the daughters of that dominant stallion, and the stallion will actually be looking to send their daughters away with these males. However, these guys have to prove themselves, and the male will fight and push them away and fight with them on a regular basis, being incredibly brutal at some points. And if he doesn't think that these stallions are strong enough or big enough or good enough for his daughters, he won't let them take them. But at the moment you see all their heads are down in a line, quite a pretty scene actually. One up, one head up, and you see when the others are down, the one head is up, looking for danger, watching us. Maybe that one popping its head up nope, now they're all down again. Even watch those ears. When they're feeding, heads down on the ground, the ears are listening, pointing in different directions, making sure that nothing sneaks up on them. I'm trying to work out which of these stallions looks like it might be the biggest. I think it might be the one in the middle. Maybe that's just his thicker stripes that are confusing me here in terms of his size, but I don't think these will be brothers either. I think they're just all stallions, similar stages of their lives, kind of joining up, moving around, feeding, getting themselves into the right fighting fit condition so that they might be able to join and compete against the dominant stallion, not to overthrow him, but to steal essentially his daughters, and they'll kind of run away with them and start their own group until they can become dominant and father their own foals. Jerome, amazing how such severe wounds can heal. And I mean, that zebra's not turned around. I wonder if he might not show it to us again. Particularly the position of that wound. So, I mean, one of the best defenses that a zebra has is that fierce kick. When running as well, they can kick incredibly well at high speeds. Now, a lion will often attack the back. It's one of the easier places to attack a zebra. And if it does, it might get a kick or two. But if it can trip that zebra up, that's the ideal goal here, is to trip that zebra up to get it off of its feet so that it's unable to kick. So if it does get onto the back of that zebra, maybe scratch it with its very sharp claws, maybe get some teeth into its back. If the zebra manages to chase that lion away, on its hind there, on its rump at least, you see how those tails are swishing? Those tails will be a great way to keep that wound clean. And because of that, if they manage to keep that wound clean, they'll avoid infection, and that'll allow it to heal. Particularly in summertime when there's lots of food around, they've got all this energy that they can use to healing this wound. They would try and keep oxpeckers away from those wounds, and that's what that tail will do. Flies as well, try and avoid flies coming in and laying eggs in those wounds. And by keeping all those sorts of things out of a wound, that'll allow it to heal. I mean, it's amazing how these animals have got such amazing adaptations to developing these wounds, even if they are quite severe. I mean, we were talking about lions on the back of zebras, particularly lions. They've got this amazing skill to somehow heal themselves. Sometimes I've thought lions had broken legs, and I was like, there's no way that lion is going to be able to survive. Even the young Birmingham male, for those of you who follow quite closely, he's got an incredibly bad limp, and that limp was developed at one point where he didn't even move, excuse me, didn't move for about 7 days, didn't drink any water, didn't eat anything for 7 days. And we were like, this is the end of him, he's just going to lie there and die. But he somehow managed to get up and end up recovering. I mean, he's got a pretty severe limp, which will probably be with him for life. But it won't hinder him too much, particularly if he manages to take over his own pride at some stage. The females might end up doing quite a lot of hunting and him ending up taking a lot of their carcasses. But that's not to say that he hasn't got the strength to take down anything of his own. And I mean, that zebra as well, with that scar on its back, very likely from a lion, as we've discussed, has got experience from a lion being on the back and having to kick it incredibly hard and chase it off. And once it's done that, once the lion is off, it's going to keep running. It's not going to come back to try and inflict any more wounds. Is that another wound on the left-hand side, or was that just the stick in the way? I think it's the stick, sorry. It's also quite interesting. I mean, we were talking about shadow stripes this morning on this plains zebra. And there's the black and the white, and in the middle of the white there is this kind of shadow stripe that along the left-hand leg, back leg, you can see it's quite dark in some places. And even in some places it's quite brown. Now, that brown color actually comes from this zebra rolling around in the sand. So I'm going to let these zebras continue feeding and swishing their tails in quite an entertaining way. I'm going to keep going, see what we can find. Maybe I'll head towards the river and towards that lion's den site, see if there's any activity. In the meantime, I'm going to send you over to Tswalu.
So only at Tswalu can you see this roan antelope. He's a beautiful big male, much bigger than the one we saw this morning, that's for sure. With these nice long ears and nice curving horns. So he's quite a big example of a nice roan. His tail's very active there, because that's because he's probably been bothered by the louse flies, those sort of biting flies. He's given you a nice, real sort of side-on profile, so closest relative to a sable. And you can see that sort of black and white coloration on the face, almost very, very similar to the sable, as well as the shape of the horns. But the roan don't get horns as large as the males. It's nice that the sun is shining on the horns. You can actually see all the little ridges on the horns. If animals are fighting, then those ridges aim to slow down the speed at which the horns come down to knock the animal. Very, very pretty. Extremely long ears. So they also just live solitarily as males. And then if they find a breeding group of females, they'll spend some time with them. AJ is commenting that that neck is massive. Absolutely. There's not a lot of hair there. He's only got a thin mane, probably about an inch in thickness, but just shows you how broad those shoulders are. So we did have the question, what's the largest antelope at Tswalu? So that is the largest antelope in southern Africa is the eland. We do have those here, but the roan is actually the second largest. And when you see that side on, broad on, like that, it does show you how actually quite large they are. And that'll also just contain lots and lots of muscles. So they'll be incredibly strong. What amazes me is that the horns literally come straight down almost into the face, and there's like a blunt, almost not quite a 90-degree angle, but it's quite sharp relative to other animals. Their face seems to be a little bit it's difficult to describe, but I want to say more normal, but that's probably not. When you're used to seeing kudu and some of the other animals with the way that their horns sit on their face, it's very different when you look at the roan and the sable. He's very cooperative, Sable. A lot more than the Gemsbok. That's for sure. Yes. You are a very cooperative gentleman. So predominantly a grazer. They do like the shorter grasses, but yeah, at the moment, lots and lots of supply. So he can be picky, he can pick what he likes. And there he's eating a creeper, just like we spoke about with the Gemsbok. It's like spaghetti. You can almost imagine him going... We're going to leave him to carry on feeding on his creeper. We'll carry on heading west.
Imagine having your own secluded African bush home where you and your friends can enjoy the ultimate safari experience. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, this could become a reality. Tumbeta House is located in the heart of Djuma Private Game Reserve, the home of Wild Earth. You could win a chance to stay at this intimate wilderness retreat, offering you the rare and highly sought-after privilege of your own home in the bush. The prize includes 3 nights for 6 people and includes daily game drives, a chance to see the Wild Earth camp, and have dinner with one of our guides. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer before the end of February 2021 and you could be heading to Djuma, the place that we call home. Available dates are limited, so terms and conditions apply.
Oh, my dear, I do find you most attractive when you're covered in bird lice. Oh, Charles, I love it when you peck at my head and clean the bird lice off me. Let me say hello to Barry here. Hello, Barry. I'm just going to examine you for some bird lice. Charles, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Oh, all right. I shall look for bird lice for myself then.
Hi, my name is Tristan Dix, and I am a guide here at Djuma Private Game Reserve for Wild Earth. We love connecting you to the African bush, and we always look forward to all of your questions. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you'll need to register on the website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit a question below the live feed. Catch up with me on Wild Earth.
Guys, just watch what's happening. See, watch the elephant, watch the lions. See, the first ones to run are the cubs. I'm not sure how scared you were, but I was quite nervous. But absolutely incredible.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Sorry about the vehicle there, everybody. We've got a tortured lioness calling with the littlest little cub at her feet. She's obviously trying to call other members of the pride. Just giving the little cub a little bit of space so it can relax. How cool is that? It's hiding behind Mum's feet. Let me just move Slightly to the left, maybe. What do you think, Seb? To the right, to the left? Just wait, eh? She might move. She's gonna call. She's gonna go slightly to the left. So there we go. The cub's gonna get up. She's going to say, hello, Mum. Oh, hello. How cute is this, everybody? Now, Tristan was tracking this pride the other day. And said he found tracks of a little cub. Went into Torchwood in the thickets. It wants to drink, everybody. Can you tell? Tell the intention there. Mama, give me some milk. She's had enough milking. Let us know, everybody. One word tweet. How does this make you feel? How does this make you feel? I feel like we've lost home base. Oh, there he is. Hello, Jared. How sweet is this, everybody? Barbara, this makes you happy. Well, that's awesome. I saw this little cub the other day with 4 or 5 of the lionesses, all the way up on Buffelshoek, but we were in the far southeast and weren't able to broadcast. Melanie says fuzzy. It makes you all fuzzy, does it? Very good. That's a good one, Jennifer. Honoured. I know, Seb, you've seen lots of little lion cubs, but how does that make you feel?
This one. Grateful.
Grateful.
And you?
Privileged. Privileged that this big, ferocious female will allow us to view her in her most intimate moments. Very, very privileged, and very grateful and very honoured to be able to view these wild animals. Can you imagine if we weren't able to do what we do? Safaris and game drives weren't a thing because the animals just didn't behave in the way they behave. What a different world we'd live in. Different world we'd live in. Charles? Well, 3 weeks, their eyes are still pretty closed, 2 weeks or so. So I'd say, sorry about that. It's not even a month yet. Maybe about a month. Somewhere around there. It's hard to tell. And she's moved it quite far the other day, like really far, which is often something a young lioness will do because she doesn't have any more cubs. She wants to follow the family, but she walked quite a few kilometers with the cub the other day, and I was quite surprised. And to find them all the way back here again means that that little fellow, or girl, I'm not sure, had to walk quite far. It's a bit early for it to be walking very far. So it's most likely the only one. So it probably doesn't like to be left alone. But Mum's definitely interested in finding her sisters. She's been calling a few times, just a soft, low communication. Belly's getting quite full in a little one. So everybody, I did have the best intentions of breaking down a medicinal plant for you all this afternoon. Unfortunately, we've been sidelined once again by Big Cat. How cheeky. There she's calling. Must have been able to hear those contact calls. Very soft. They go further than you think. No, she's very relaxed. Little youngster's a little bit sort of cautious of the cars when they come a bit closer, hides behind Mum, but then that's what habituation is, everybody, is that the adult isn't reacting to the presence of a vehicle, and the youngster might be like, what's this noisy thing? Will react, and then because Mum doesn't react, it learns that that's not a threat. Medicinal enough, everybody. Well, I will be doing it when the time comes, I promise. My medicinal Monday will just change. Don't think we'll have our other car fixed in the morning, so I'll be on the dam cam again, but I will definitely do it on Wednesday. Medicinal Wednesdays gives me a few days to actually ferment some of the stuff that I've got, because part of it is a fermentation, so Don't know if 2 days is enough, but we shall try. We shall see how it goes. It's a new plant for me. Okay, well, from our Ngalas, Mama and Baby, we're going to send you over to and beyond Ngala. Welcome back, everybody. Now, Murphy's had it here. I mean, firstly, Steve, I'm very jealous of your lion and cubs. I'm on my way to have a look at the den site, and we might end up, hopefully, if we're lucky, having a bit of a cub off this afternoon. But there was a whole flock of carmine bee-eaters in this tree over here. It was quite stunning to have a look at, and obviously Karma's had it, and Murphy, that they've kind of moved off as we got a little bit closer. They have flown off to another tree, but there's maybe just less than 100 of them. There's also a few European bee-eaters that are flying around over there. I wonder if there's not an insect eruption around here. They also will be looking for a tree to roost in for the evening. So these carmine bee-eaters, which we don't see in these huge numbers so much down here. I mean, normally a little bit further north of us, getting into Zimbabwe and things in Zambia, you'll see huge flocks of carmine bee-eaters with this beautiful red. It's a bit difficult to see the color of their throats from here. But an amazing bird. They're actually making quite a lot of noise as well. I think it's a bit far to hear through the microphone. But a stunning bird to see, and ones that we don't see too often. This year as well, we were talking about European rollers earlier, and how this year's been such a good year for them. I mean, it's a stunning tree as well. I wonder, that's the tree out, so it's a bit far. There are lots of them flying around in there. Oh, a bit tricky. I reckon let's keep going. I think most of them have gone off. So I am on my way towards that den site. I wonder if we're going to have a little cub off this afternoon between Juma and Ngala. I think Juma's definitely winning it at the moment, but it's that time of the day when lions are starting to become active, and hopefully some cubs will start to be active. I'm sure they've been spending a lot of the time sleeping during the day. Maybe they've got a bit of an appetite, and Mom's kind of come out onto the bank. I'm sure she's still around as well. And if we're very lucky, we might have another feed of cubs coming through to you. Hopefully feeding and moving around. And as I was saying, this is the time of the day when they'll start to be feeding and suckling and playing with Mom and one another. This is the time of the day when Mom is going to start getting ready for the evening. There's a good chance. I don't think she's eaten in 2 or 3 days. She did eat a fairly good meal probably 3 days ago. I think it was a young wildebeest, which was sufficient to keep her going for 3 days and provide enough milk for her to spend some time with those cubs, feeding them. So it'll be very interesting. There were also those 2 older cubs, if you remember correctly, that have been hanging around that den site. I wonder if they're not still around. I wonder if they're still causing trouble. I wonder if they've learned their lesson. Remember, they came in to try and play with the little ones, the brand new cubs that are around 2 months old, and the mom wasn't so happy about that. Kind of gave them a little bit of a disciplining, almost pushing the one into the riverbed. It was very entertaining. Let me just make sure I don't slide in this water up ahead. We'll see all this water that's catching in the road. The vehicles can slide and create quite bad ruts. The best way to avoid that is actually drive right in them rather than pushing the sand and allowing the vehicle to slide. So I'm going to keep going on my way to this den site. I'll send you over to Steve, where he's also got his lion cubs. Hopefully the next time you come back here, we're going to have some lion cubs of our own. Well, catch a day on a Monday. And I hope you do find cubs. We won't be able to stay here for much longer, though. As the light is starting to fade. I hope you can hear that now. There was a bit of a technical issue with our ambient mic there for a moment. Unfortunately, it's still not there. Apologies for that. Such a powerful animal. You see the shoulder muscles there. It's just muscle and strength. Paul, I really don't know. I don't know this pride very well at all, the tortured pride. She's quite young. She doesn't look like she's very old, so I don't know if it's her first. It's difficult to age them without really knowing who they are, but she doesn't look that old. She looks like it might be at least have had one litter before this. But often a telltale sign is when they're still young, is they haven't shown the mammary gland sort of expression yet. And then when they do have cubs, if we spend time with them, we'll know, but we don't get to spend a lot of time with these guys. They spend a lot of time in Nkoro and into Kruger on the eastern side. Even though the name is Tortured Pride, they do go up into Tortured. Then they clash a bit with the Talamatis up towards the north. They've sort of fitted into a role that the Sticks used to, an area the Sticks used to take up in the sort of southeastern section here of the north. I haven't heard of the Sticks in ages. I haven't seen them in quite some time. But maybe some of you out there have spent time with the Tortured Pride and can identify this female and know who she might be. Maybe you would know. I'm really not sure. I don't know, Stanley, exactly the amount of minutes or hours, but lions hunt when they're hungry, so as soon as she's hungry, she'll hunt. Doesn't necessarily mean she'll be successful, but I've no doubt that the process of birthing requires a fair amount of energy, and she probably doesn't eat for a few days before because she's just quite bloated and quite sort of uncomfortable. Remember, I don't know if any of you recall last year when Purple Eye was just about to pop, as you would say. She was in the drainage line for 2 days where she gave birth eventually. Jamie found her there, I found her there, and I found her again that evening, and she was just lying there on her back with this huge belly just going, come on already. So I'm pretty sure once they have given birth that as soon as they're able to, as soon as they feel safe or comfortable enough with the den site, they'll go off and hunt. They have to for their own safety, their own security, their own bodily functions. And I'm sure to be different each time as well. I mean, for example, Purple Eye took off on her own for a few days. So if a pride is quite nearby and the female ends up feeding off of that kill right up until giving birth, then a few more days, but invariably they go and isolate themselves for a few days beforehand, and then they might not even see their pride depending on the area and where the pride moves off to for a few days, a few weeks sometimes. Good mothers will stay right there, not go very far, very effective and efficient hunters on their own. But we noticed with Amber Eyes, the last 2 litters, obviously this last one she's had has been successful. Amber Eyes is obviously of the Nkuhuma pride. Her first 2 litters were unsuccessful because she had them on her own, and the pride went hunting and she just couldn't help herself and went hunting, and each time she came back, unfortunately her den had been discovered. So as soon as lions do breed at the same time, you'll often find them hanging out much closer together, and then it's benefits for themselves because, well, they can hunt together and they can communally suckle together, and there's mutual defense. Definitely is easier for lions to hunt as a group than on their own, statistically. And Portia does. She looks in fine condition. fine condition. White brass scrub robin closing down for the evening. Tatsu, they could spend the night anywhere, really. She's probably been in the bush most of the day, in the shade, and now she's just in the road because the road's much easier to walk in, much easier to cover ground. It's more comfortable. There's no sticks, there's no ticks, it's not wet. You often find lions, leopards, hyenas, wild dogs lying in the road. In winter, you find it on the Kruger as well, that they lie on the road for the warmth in the winter evenings, because the roads hold the heat, especially the tar roads hold the heat a lot quicker. We noticed with the flare, didn't we, Seb, the thermal camera, how quickly these roads lost heat in the winter months versus the vegetated areas. But she's going to move. As soon as I can hear lions calling from the direction she's now looking. Sounds more like a roar than a contact call. And she'd be able to discern it. Just like when you call to your friend, he can hear it you. Lions know who's calling. Friend or foe, sister, cousin, auntie. She knows she needs to suckle. She needs to go hunting. She needs to see her family. There's so many things going on in her mind right now. Shame. Don't worry though, everybody. She will be just fine. Okay, well, we'll probably stay here for a few more minutes as it's starting to get dark, but we should probably get up and move off shortly. Okay, well, I think her movement is just to change position slightly, give us a bit of view. Thank you, Mama. So she wants to move, but the cub is like, I'm not done yet. And so she probably knows deep down that for the cub to be able to keep up with her, she needs it to be full and needs it to have energy, but she wants to move. There she goes. The cub's like, why did you tell her to move? Look how... Oh, that was a look of, who do you think you... Oh, my goodness. Now, everybody, those are tracks to look out for, because this road has just been dragged. There's barely a vehicle on it. And when you see lioness and cub tracks together, it is very cute to see. Where are we going, Mum? Where are we going? That is tiny. Okay, so they're going to walk off probably towards the left. And that'll probably be it for us and them for the evening.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
We stopped as the dusk was settling and there was a zebra mare underneath the bush. She was lying down. We didn't really know what was happening, and then we saw it.
Everybody, there's a zebra giving birth there. There's a zebra giving birth. This is a zebra giving birth. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, you clever mare. Well done. It's born, everyone. It's born and it's alive and it looks fine.
This was, of course, an unusual sighting. Normally, herbivores like impala and wildebeest and zebra will give birth during the middle of the day. This is when their predators like lions and hyenas are fast asleep. But as this little foal took its first steps, the dying embers of the day had just gone over the western horizon, and it was just the time that the hyenas and lions were starting to get active and go out foraging. This is why we didn't light up the sighting, of course. It may have compromised the zebra's eyes and at the same time attracted those hyenas and lions to the activity.
I'm Nikki here at Ambion Ngala in South Africa. I love getting questions from viewers about all the small things within the environment and how it all is integrated with one another. If you want to ask me any questions, please simply register with the Wild Earth website, head across to the Live Safari page and then post your questions there. I'm looking forward to chatting to you on my next Wild Earth drive.
We have a baby pangolin. A baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
Welcome back, everybody. Now we've come to the den site and we found the 2 older cubs and their mother's also lying in the long grass here. She's up and down every now and then. She's on the right hand side. She's just lying down right there. You can see her kind of white tummy showing. And it is that time. Look at the tail flicking as well. It's that time of the day when you'll see the cubs are starting to move around. I mean, these older cubs are at an age now, they're just less than a year old. And they are still tiny little cubs, still very playful. Small little yawn, sort of looked like one was about to yawn. Are you going to yawn? Not quite. But this is a male and a female, and for those of you who have been following, they, as I said, just less than a year old, and they've been hanging in the past couple of days around the den site where those other little ones are. Let's see if this one doesn't go and try and encourage mom to get up here. Oh, no, it was just getting frustrated. I can't see which one's which from here at the moment in terms of which one's the male, which one's the female. But I wonder if this other one wasn't just irritating that one a little bit too much, so it got up and got its own space. It's amazing how much they've grown as well. They're getting to the kind of age where I'm sure mom's going to get up this evening and move. They've been here for about 3 days. There is a bit of a smell around here. I'm sure they have made a kill and they've stored it in one of these thicker bushes. And that's what kept them here for the past few days. Also, that mother with the tiny cubs is around here somewhere. She could be lying in a bit of the long grass or in one of the thicker bushes hiding their cubs. And as the sun has gone, or it's gone down and it's getting dark quite quickly, I wonder if these lions are going to move around. It's also the time of the day when hyenas particularly are going to start moving around. And if hyenas do start to move around, they're going to come and walk down pasture, and they're going to get a smell of this carcass that's been rotting over the past couple of days. And if they do, they're going to come and investigate, and they're going to get a big fright, because there's going to be this lioness who's got her 2 older cubs, and there's that other lioness who's quite a bit older. She's a little bit bigger as well. She's got her 3 very little cubs. Now, lions are known to be incredible predators and can be incredibly aggressive. And they can be even more aggressive when it comes to protecting their young ones. So you'll see if a hyena or another lion or anything, in fact, gets too close to this den site, they will chase them off incredibly aggressively. Even the other day when the little ones these older cubs got too close to the little ones, the mother got quite aggressive and showed them who's boss, and showed them that they can't be pushing their weight around the little ones just yet. So these 2 that are around a year old, and the mother, who's also quite young, she's about 4.5 years old. She's a first-time mother as well, and she's done an incredible job to get these cubs to the age that they are. As far as we're aware, she only gave birth to 2 cubs, and they've both survived, or the one's up walking towards the next one. Let's see if it might not encourage a bit of play. I love how lions do that. I mean, they just go rub heads and then flop on top of another one. And that's probably the reason that first one got up and moved away, is that the other one was maybe lying on top of it, still wanting to get a bit of rest, and can't even get a moment while the other one's on. But they're such social animals. And I mean, this brother and sister have grown up, and they've hardly spent any time apart. They know each other and play with each other all the time. But that won't last forever. I mean, in the lives of these cubs, the female will live with the pride forever, and she'll live with mom, and she'll be an incredible part of this pride as it gets bigger and stronger and develops. The amount of females will stay the same. The females will be with the pride forever. That young male, however, he's on his own at this age. The younger ones that are about 2 months old, there's 1 male and 2 females. They might be able to join a coalition at being probably 8 months apart if they grow up to being old enough and strong enough to leaving the pride. And that'll normally happen at around 3 years, 3.5 years. And it'll be very interesting. We have been discussing it amongst ourselves about when the Ross males who are in charge of the pride, I haven't heard them at all in the past 2 weeks. I still don't think they're on the property. The Birmingham Breakaway Pride has also got cubs at the moment, which I'm fairly certain they are the fathers of as well. So maybe they're hanging around in the western part of the reserve, kind of keeping an eye out on those cubs. But when these young males move off, live this nomadic life till about 6 years old or so, they'll then father their own cubs. Now, an incredibly important role of the Ross males or males within a pride is to actually look after the cubs. They will do so by patrolling territories, advertising their presence, because the biggest threat to cubs at this age would be other lions. So the Ross males been in charge of the Birmingham Pride, or been dominant in the Birmingham Pride for almost 3 years, or actually just over 3 years in fact. And I'm sure getting older, there might be a coalition or even some males that come through at some point, some Aramark babblers calling in the distance, that come through and put pressure on this pride. Now I've already mentioned a couple of days ago how one of my personal opinions as to why the Ross males have done so well. There's only 2 of them. Okay, we're going to switch to infrared quickly. One of the reasons that they've done so well, I think, is because they've been incredibly good at running away and avoiding conflict. Conflict out here, if it's necessary, can be the difference between life and death for the rest of your pride, and particularly your cubs. But if one of the males gets injured and injures themselves so badly that they can't keep patrolling, they will actually end up losing this territory, because they won't be able to protect it against males coming in. They will be able to advertise from a place that they are at. If they can't walk and get to another place, here comes one of the cubs to play with mom. Let's see if it goes and it interacts. Oh, just flops down. So these cubs, at being just less than a year as well, have just finished being weaned, or they should have been. That also might be a reason that they're hanging around. That other female who's full of milk and lactating for the other cubs, they will try their best to get some of that incredibly rich and nutritious milk from the other mom, and she will share, but not at the expense of her own cubs. So yeah, it's very interesting. I wonder where the Ross males are at the moment. I haven't seen tracks of them. I haven't heard them calling. And particularly with such young cubs, I thought their presence would be a little bit more obvious in this area, at least. At least the presence of their roaring and their advertisements in the evenings and the mornings. But I've heard nothing. So the mother's got an extra hard job in looking after those little cubs without the males. Laura, until what age can lionesses have cubs? As far as I'm aware, they have cubs until they get too old to actually defend or fend for themselves, until they actually die. So, I mean, it's such an instinctive thing for them to reproduce cubs and keep their genes going and passing them on. So they'll keep having cubs until they can't anymore because they might not be around. So they'll keep going. There's no real cut-off time in terms of age that they can stop having cubs. So, I mean, this female being at about 4 years old, normally around 3.5, they'll have their first litter or so. Look at her rolling over. These are signs of her getting active and moving around, and she's still got a bit of growing to do herself. And even this kind of behavior, she sometimes even shows cub-like behavior, like rolling over and going to the cubs. And even the other day when she was interacting with the other female, she was behaving like a cub, and she's still a young lion herself, got a lot of growing and developing to do, but she's an incredible lioness. Look, I wonder if she's not going to encourage that little one to start playing. Look at the tails are flicking. And being her first set of cubs, if they manage to survive, she'll only have another set of cubs in the next 3 years or so. Depending on the males and females, the females will be the ones that stick around to increase the number of the Birmingham Pride. Oh, little head in the grass. Still super cute. I mean, these last year, I remember, were the big hit. We've now got these new 3 additions who are the new favorites, although this lioness is definitely one of my favorites in this Pride. And it'll be super interesting to see. I mean, at 21 lions at the moment, if new males do come through and kind of outcompete the Ross males and put pressure on these little cubs, because they will do that. They'll come through, and if they do take over and they find these cubs, they will kill them. And the reason they'll do that is because, I mentioned, the lioness will only able to have cubs again in the next 2 to 3 years. Those new males that come through don't have the time to just hang around and wait for her. They need to come in and they need to be fathering cubs as quickly as they can, because their time is so limited within a pride. The competition around is so fierce, and male lions, because of the competition, have got quite a short lifespan compared to lionesses. They'll live to normally around 10 years old, and that'll be because they spend a lot of their time fighting and defending territories and defending little cubs. And females will often live to about 15 or so, because they don't quite have the responsibilities of the males. But interesting, I mean, at 21 lions, the pride is quite big, and it's quite tricky to feed 21 lions. Even at one point, I thought, before these 3 new additions were brought into the Birmingham Pride, I thought she was actually going to leave and just kind of go on her own way, and that's very possible. When lion prides get too big, you might see 1 or 2 lionesses kind of veer off and find their own little territory in their own little area, take their cubs with them into a vacant area where they might be able to start a pride of their own. Let the cubs get bigger, particularly if they've got females, because the females are their daughters and the genes are going to be passed on. They might let the females get to an old enough age where new males will come through and they'll start their own pride. I mean, that's exactly how the Birmingham Breakaway Pride was developed and started. It's just a little segment. One or two of the lionesses just left the Birmingham Pride out of nowhere and just never came back, you know. Quite restless, this lioness as well, just rolling over, and it's getting dark incredibly quickly. It looked like she was showing signs of getting up and moving, although now not so much. I might as well, seeing as it's getting quite dark, keep going. I'm not going to be hanging around this den site with cubs of this age in the dark, although we do have an infrared. I'm going to let them do what they do and see what other nocturnal critters we can find. In the meantime, I'll send you over to Tswalu, where it's a bit lighter.
Welcome back to Tswalu. Oh, is that there's a bird in the road. I thought it was a squirrel or something. There are actually two little birds there on that boskia in front of us. Yeah, but I have to get my binoculars to see what they are. Oh, little mouse birds. Oh, beautiful. It's a little white-backed mouse bird. Little red feet. Do you see them there? That was one. Wait, there were two there. Little white-backed mouse birds generally tend to be in little groups. That's not a mouse bird on the ground, though. Let me go forward a little bit, maybe. There's a red-crested korhaan shouting. Try not to scare the mouse birds away, but we'll see if... there we go. Do you see where he landed? He's just on the left-hand side on that... looks like a raisin. Silver raisin. Yeah, there he is. There we go. Now you can see a white-backed mouse bird. You literally just see the little white stripe on the back. A nice little white beak. A real nice little grey crest. And then a long, really scruffy tail. So they call them mouse birds because they're sort of a mouse coloration, but also the way that they move in amongst the vegetation. They sort of scramble around. They're quite little, fragile birds. Oh, and there he goes. He's now on top of the boskia, but I don't think we can see him from there. No, he's hiding. Of course, he's on the other side of the tree. So a little mouse bird would be... they are very sweet birds. It looks like that one's headed off, but the little mouse birds will actually eat mostly fruit. Fruit and seeds is what they're looking for, and they will eat insects, and they are normally in a little group, gregarious group. So we see in the white-backed mouse birds, we see sort of 3 or 4 together. Not as much as the speckled mouse birds and the red-faced mouse birds as you'd see in the other areas. I've just seen... we saw quite a lot of it. We didn't show you yesterday, but when we were in one of those other areas, we drove through this grass. But I want to just put it relative to me, how tall this grass is. And it's known as a giant finger grass because of the way one of the digitaria, so digits, meaning like digits like fingers, they go up like that, but sometimes even called a crow's foot, which, well, I suppose. But I'm 1.78. This one's certainly taller than me from the ground, so quite an impressive grass. And should be relatively palatable. I've seen all the seeds have been eaten, which would suggest that the seed-eating birds, the little sociable weavers, and some of the finches and some of the waxbills, they'd be feeding on these seeds. They're also small enough. Sometimes we're talking about a bird called a longclaw, one of the larks, or a long claw, and they purposefully have a long claw on the back of their feet so that they can actually grab multiple branches together, close it, and that will hold their weight while they can feed the rest of the seeds off. This one, I think, would probably just land up holding some of the really tiny little finches. Just really awesome to start hearing everything winding down for the day. It's mostly wattled starlings calling in the background. There's a nice example this side. Morgan will have to come all the way around. This side of the weaver's nests. So these ones are this season's weaver's nest. They would have been probably all 3 nests built by the same male. And they have, for the green grasses, dried out already, so they would have been used probably late November, early December. Most of the weavers start very early in the season breeding. Doesn't look like they're occupied at this point in time. I'm going to put the aerial back here. Oh. Magnetic mobile aerial. We'll carry on heading down the road and see what else we can find. Oh, nearly we weren't heading anywhere. That sounded very sickly for a Land Rover. Andrew is asking the question, why would that male weaver build 3 nests? Well, he's a little bit of a player, if we can put it that way. He's polygamous, poly meaning many, and gamous meaning females. So he does try and attract different females, have different nests, she'll lay eggs, and he will help feed chicks as and when they're big for food. So there is a bit more of a challenge for him if he's managing to help each female feed the chicks. But it's because the weavers are polygamous in nature. There are 1 or 2. We did speak about a red-headed weaver earlier that weaves a stick nest. They're one of the ones that's actually monogamous. So they spend time as a male and female pair, and then they will just sort of have a set site where they make their nest every single year. But yeah, the weavers, the majority of them tend to be polygamous. Hence the reason why there's so much competition at an ideal nesting site near a water area. There's a wildebeest. Maybe he wants to stand and stop and look at us. Stop, stop, stop. No. Just behind the thicket. He might be coming out. We'll just wait a little bit. He's coming past. He hasn't even acknowledged. There we go. I was going to say he hasn't even seen us yet. So you can see that bare patch just below his eye. That's the preorbital gland that I was speaking about earlier when they do their markings. I'm going to go backwards because he seems to be on a mission to go in that general direction. So maybe we'll get him again. Oh, no, he stopped to feed. Here he comes. Yeah, keep coming, keep coming. Yeah, that's a good wildebeest. Stay. Very cooperative gentleman. We can be very grateful. Oh, he's going to go and do it. He's going to go and rub his face. Yes, all these wildebeest are alone. But that is the nature of a territorial bull, and only he might dig and scratch there where he's there. So a territorial bull will only get a group of females in the breeding season. He might be smelling another bull's territory, which is why I say he was on a mission. But look at what he's doing now. Watch how he sort of tries to... He's smelling, and then he's trying to rub that scent gland on his eye on the tree. And maybe he's just got an itch. He's doing this literally 10 meters away from us. So he's very relaxed with our presence. It's not common that you get them doing territorial behavior when you're this close to them. They do tend to be a little bit more shy. But I'm going to keep quiet for a second. You can hear him. That branch was... Okay, yeah. So maybe he was a little bit too far away to hear him, but you could hear the as he was scratching his horns on the tree, and it was the perfect height for the top of his horns. So let's... he seems to be quite happy with our presence, so we're just going to keep with him, see what he's up to. We came from that side, we came from the direction he's going in, and we didn't see any ladies, unfortunately, so that's... Oh, no. He's... Neva is asking, is a male wildebeest as aggressive as a buffalo? I'd probably say no. Well, I'd say no, and that would be based on just temperament. Wildebeest are not necessarily aggressive animals like buffalo. Buffalo tend to also just get old and wounded and quite grumpy, whereas the wildebeest not necessarily that much. We're going to carry on going. He's just gone behind the vehicle, which is a bit difficult. So certainly a buffalo would have a lot more attitude when it comes to aggression. But make no mistake, if either are cornered, I mean, a buffalo is much larger in weight than a wildebeest. But if you encountered either one and you cornered either, wildebeest can also do damage in that they can kill somebody if they need to, just based on trying to defend themselves. It's not a typical behavior for a wildebeest to do that. They do tend to rather want to run away than look for trouble, and that's their nature. Whereas a buffalo with lions, sometimes it becomes a game of sort of cat and mouse, where the lion chases them, then the buffalo chases the lion, and vice versa. So the buffalo tend to be a lot more aggressive, sure of themselves as well. So we're going to send you from our wildebeest to some other wildebeest in Ngala.
Thanks, Deirdre. To wildebeest in the dark as well. I mean, we are incredibly privileged and fortunate to have this infrared light, which allows us to view these animals. Oh, sorry. So having this infrared light to allow us to view these wildebeest and these impala, in fact. I mean, these are something that we normally don't view at all during the evenings, and this reason being is we can't see them without a light. So we use this infrared light without having any effect on them. And the reason we don't put a light on these animals is they've got incredibly sensitive eyes to light. So they are daytime animals and they operate predominantly during the day. There are a few little impala lambs that are calling, lots of frogs calling as well. And similar to humans, you know, when you look into a light or you walk into a room and then turn the lights off, you're completely blind. So I think I read an article the other day that says it takes your eyes about 45 minutes or so to readjust to the conditions that are around. Look at this young impala as well. Look at those tiny little horns. About 3 or 4 months old, just starting to grow these little horns, a young male. And as I was saying, this infrared technology is fantastic. Being able to sit here without having any impact or influence on what they're doing, without putting them at a disadvantage by shining a light into their eyes. Obviously, when we do shine a light, we'll talk about their sensitive eyes. You put them at this disadvantage because it takes their eyes so long to readjust. They really need to have every advantage they can. And if we are disadvantaging them by shining a light, it may make them more susceptible to predation in the evenings. I mean, we were speaking about lions and hyenas becoming more active. If they moved through an area like this and the impala's eyes are still adjusting to the dark, there's a very good chance, or the wildebeest for that matter, that the lion might in fact catch one of them. And we're not here to do any of that. We're here to be as sensitive as we possibly can to all these animals. This is their kind of hunting ground. Look at all the insects as well. I'm quite glad I don't have a spotlight on now, or even my vehicle lights, simply because all these insects would be flocking straight towards the light, frustrating us incredibly so. And that's one of the, I guess, drawbacks in summertime. I mean, the insects provide food to a lot of the animals, but driving around with a light, particularly if you're going on the roads in the evening with your headlights on and a spotlight going, the amount of insects that might be going into your eyes and your mouth and your nose can be quite intense. You'll often see guests driving on the back of their vehicle or back of vehicles with sunglasses on in the dark just to avoid any insects flying into their eyes. A dung beetle flying at night, if that hits you in the eye, particularly if you're going at 30 kilometers an hour, 40 k's an hour, can do some serious damage, might even take your eye right out. But you see, I mean, these wildebeest and the impalas are in this open area. There is food. I mean, a few of them are still feeding. And they may use this early part in the evening to feed, but they may try and get as much rest as they possibly can by lying down in this open Lisa, they're not very active at night. How active are wildebeests at night is the question, and the answer is not very. And the reason for that goes back to their eyes. So their eyes are not well adapted to taking in light in the dark. So they'll actually find themselves moving into a more open area where there's lots of animals. You see how there were impalas, and now there's quite a big group of wildebeest here as well. They'll hang around and they'll try and be this open area where they can see danger coming from a distance. So they'll try not to move around too much. They'll try not to make too much noise, and they'll try and get as much rest as they can so that they can use their energy during the day to find food. That's not to say if a predator came running through here to try and chase these wildebeest, they would kick into gear and be incredibly active to try and run away. Listen to those impala lambs. Don't know if you can hear them. They're making some strange noises. I mean, it's become dark now. They might be trying to relocate their mothers by giving these calls. It's quite a pretty scene, in fact. Apparently you can't hear them. Sorry about that. I think maybe they might be below the level of the frogs that are going mad. There's a single impala with no lamb. Eerie with the glowing eyes, I agree with you. That's just their eyes reflecting the infrared. I mean, there is no light on them. Have a look at those ones lying down as well. There's a few little lambs. The smaller ones lying down, and they will lie down like that in the evenings and try and get some sleep. It's an incredibly stressful place to try and sleep, just because you know there are lots of animals that are coming out now and just starting their evenings looking for these little ones. Look how they rested. They kind of tuck their legs up and kind of get themselves comfortable quite close to one another. Those all look like little ones, where the mothers are still moving around. Have a look how their mouths are moving as well. They're ruminating, taking this advantage. It's quite nice and cool. Ruminating, passing food between, or chewing the cud and passing the cud between stomachs, getting as much of the nutrients as they possibly can from it. And I agree, though, it does look quite eerie with those eyes watching right at us. And those ears. Ears are listening always. It's also quite eerie. It's still this evening. There's not a breath of wind. It's getting dark. There's quite a lot of cloud cover. I'm not actually sure what the cycle of the moon is at the moment. I haven't seen it for about a week and a half because of all the clouds and all the rain that we've been having. Oh, there's a male as well. Doing a bit of grooming and licking, cleaning up the backside. I mean, impalas are also incredibly good groomers. They're fastidious groomers, in fact. Cleaning themselves and each other. I mean, even look at that coat of that male in the darkness. You can see it's perfect. There's not a hair that's out of place. He'll lick himself. Other impalas will lick him clean as well. Make sure that his coat's in perfect condition. They're incredibly beautiful animals. And in this light, actually, it gives quite a nice. It kind of shades the colors as well. There's like these three-tone colors. You can't see the bottom color so clearly, but you can see that line across that male where there's that darker, almost caramel color on the top, lighter caramel color below, and then a white color almost underneath their bellies. The male's quite a lot bigger than those little ones, hey? And that little one that we saw earlier with those tiny little horns. We look at that male looking forward to getting big and strong like that. Is he going to lie down as well? There he goes. In exactly the same style as those little ones, hey? And right close by as well. Okay, so I'm going to let these impalas continue to rest. I'm going to try not to disturb them. I'm going to send you over to Steve while we continue to look for some nocturnal critters.
Thanks, Dan. Well, we left our lioness, who joined up with another lioness and the cub. So after spending a little bit more time looking at that cub, probably closer to, after discussion with Seb as well, probably closer to 2.5 months maybe in age, maybe even 3. And the calling, as hard as it might sound, everybody, it was probably her, as we had last year, January, those of you remember, with Chella around Chella Pan, looking for her cubs.
So maybe she's lost one. Sad face. Because she found her sister was right there the whole time. And the cub caught up and then off they ran. So that's possibly a little bit of a where's my last cub or my other cub gone, which happens, everybody. These lions aren't always that successful. Chela of the Nkuhumas had 4, and then 3 of them went missing. And then only 1 who's still with them last we checked there, so that's very exciting. Bringing 9 youngsters to the Nkuhuma Pride, who I saw very briefly the other day on foot when I was tracking them. We weren't able to broadcast. We've got an elephant in the road up ahead. I'm just going to go lie it down. I think there's an elephant. Looks like one. I'm driving off of the camera, everybody. I can't see. There's a tree. Okay, well, it's important to know. That looked like an elephant over there. It's important to not drive into elephants with lights. They don't like it very much. It is seemingly a new tree in the road. Beautiful tree you are. As Dan was saying before about lights and about the IR, is dead right about the IR not affecting them. But elephants do not like bright lights. They don't like spotlights. I mean, do you? If I shone this in your eyes, you wouldn't like it very much, would you? So we try and be as careful as we can with the lights. And we're just going to go through this little dip and up the hill and slowly heading on home.
When on safari, there's nothing better than an evening spent under the stars chatting around a fire, with the sounds of the wild all around you. If you sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer, you can build your own memories by joining our guides for regular fireside chats. Subscription payments can be made by PayPal, credit card, and now bank transfer. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature.
Our bodies are made up of about 60% water, which means that in a very short space of time, you can dehydrate completely. A relatively efficient way of collecting water early in the morning is to take an absorbent material like a sock and to walk through the grass, absorbing the condensed dewdrops on the grass. Once the material is saturated, you can then squeeze it out into a container, or you can suck it out directly into your mouth.
My name is Steve, and one of my favorite things at Wild Earth is getting questions from you. The type of questions that I really like are those ones that really help us to unpack and understand and really integrate the ecological knowledge and fully appreciate the importance that animals such as these Cape buffalo bring to the ecosystem. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, you're going to have to register on the website. But once registered, just head on over to the live safari page and enter your question under the live feed.
This is a battle of 2 great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
My name is Moritz, and I come to you live every day from Tswalu Kalahari here in South Africa. My favorite thing is probably the predators. And as you can see, we're looking at some of them right now. These are the kings of the Kalahari. Spending time with the cats, it's just a privilege. And I love their behavior. You know, the more that you look at them, just the power and the sheer beauty and elegance of them.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Isn't that just a beautiful sunset? So, as Morgan and I just sit here just quietly, we can hear the little barking geckos say kick, 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 kick. They've started already. The wattle starlings are going to bed. The crickets, you can start hearing the nocturnal animals, the little nocturnal crickets coming out. There we go, barking gecko, kick. That is a true sign that it is starting to wind down. Wind down for some and wind up for others. But spectacular on the western horizon, but it's also thrown up some stunning colours out on our northern horizon. It looks like somebody's taken a paintbrush and just run their fingers through the clouds and made it all messy, and then the sun has now painted it in a very beautiful pink purple light. And as one day ends, so another one begins. You can join us tomorrow at 4 a.m. Central African time. And somebody's just commented that that sunset looks like the Tswalu soil. Absolutely. We're never disappointed with the sunset here. I've got a correction. 6 a.m. for morning drive, Central African time. And then you can join us all over again for a morning safari. I know we're going to go and follow up on the meerkats to see if we can finally find those little pups. So you must stay tuned and we'll see what we can find. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us this evening at all the different properties. We had Djuma tonight, we had Ngala, we had Pinda, and of course Tswalu. And we will see you all tomorrow, bright and early.